Hey guys, Bobby Thompson here, back with another episode of Jiu-Jitsu and Coffee. And today our guests are Joan Ioanis, right? Did I get it right? Finally. And Jeremy Martinez. So just going to be the three of us today, putting it down. And we'll start off with Jeremy. Jeremy's our guest today. So Jeremy, give us a little bit about your background in Jiu-Jitsu, or your background in martial arts, sorry.
So I started doing karate when I was 4 with my little brother. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the martial arts style, the vibe. And then I went from there. I started doing Taekwondo. And then when I was around 10, I started doing Muay Thai. And that's when I got more into the UFC, MMA, that type of fight. And then I was like hitting the bag really hard one day. There was this girl saying, "Hey, come to the mats. See if you're a real fighter." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to go easy on you." Big mistake. She put me in an arm triangle, choked me a few times, and I was like, I want to be able to do that. And then I started doing it, but didn't have enough time because I was doing boxing and kickboxing. All that was going for like 2 times a week. And then I had to move. And then in that gym, there was no jiu-jitsu, so it was all just standing, multi, kickboxing. Then I came down here, and I found this gym and instantly fell in love with it.
So have you fought in a ring?
Sparring, that's all I have done.
Oh, okay. So you haven't done MMA yet?
No.
Okay. But yesterday, that was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday you did your first 10th Planet, at least the local 10th Planet tournament, and you competed. I think you were the only teenager competing, right? All those other guys, that was an adult division, and you competed in 2 divisions, the 155 and the 170. So took second in the 155. And how many guys? You beat 3 or 4 guys? I don't remember.
It was
3. Yeah. So that was pretty good. Beat 3 tough guys. And let me see. Joan. Oh yeah, you competed in that too. Mm-hmm. That was had 2 tough matches.
Yeah, that was hard.
Man, I should have said something. Because both times it went to overtime, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the first time it went to overtime, the girl armbarred you in 8 seconds.
I realized my mistake like after the fact.
The thing of it is you went to the back, mm-hmm. and you went for a choke, mm-hmm. which most people can hold their breath 8 seconds. So mm-hmm. I was like, you had her in the choke, mm-hmm. It was under her chin. It was tight, and
her teammates. Did you hear her teammates? They were like, just fall asleep. You have to go to sleep. And I was just like, dude, what kind of coaching is that? But they're pretty savage at 10th Planet. So, and for all of February, I've rolled maybe 3 days total because of an injury. So I just wanted to come and give her a match so that they didn't have to cancel the division. Mm-hmm. And it was fun. I thought it would be a lot harder than what it was. I thought I would gas out right away, maybe in the first half of my matches, but I felt good the whole time. My cardio wasn't shit like I expected. And I don't know, I just wish I had more time to prepare, but I was just doing a favor and going out there to have fun. So I don't know, I hope I can do it again soon.
Yeah, both matches were great matches. Both mm-hmm. of them went to overtime. I saw some things we're gonna work on for sure, mm-hmm. but I think that's the way you have to go about it. You have to, if you're gonna compete, you just have to have fun with it. I know for some people, competition is really difficult. They deal with a lot of butterflies, and they deal with a lot of they so much adrenaline that they deal with all the lactic acid buildup in their arms. And when I first started competing, it was like that. My first 2 or 3 years, it was a big deal. And I started competing in 2003, and there wasn't a lot of tournaments, and it was just you'd travel out of state, and you're thinking about it for days, and but now there's a competition almost every month, so it's not that big a deal. When you have a little bit of time, you've done a couple competitions, but Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think you guys did great. You know, now I had a problem with one thing though, and that's that you lost the 155 division by a heel hook.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't make an issue out of it. I should have, because it wasn't. I mean, it's arguably the hold is not a standard heel hook hold, right? He didn't grab the heel, but he did the exact same manipulation on the foot. He just had a different. He just kind of had your toes under your armpit, and he angled up to where it was essentially a heel hook. You know, I don't know. I didn't like that.
Yeah, he tried to do it. He did it twice. On the first attempt, when I tried to like roll out of it, I actually messed up my knee. It was instant pain, and I was just trying. At that point, I was like just trying to survive, because he was just going for the legs, and I was trying to just go to guard, but he wouldn't let me. So then he got it deep, and then I started feeling the pain on my other knee, and I just tapped.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you tapped. It's not worth it. It's not worth the injury. How's the knee doing?
It's feeling better since yesterday. I've been putting some cream. It's been helping a lot.
Yeah. Did you? I'm curious. Did you watch last night's fights?
Yeah, I did. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty. Some pretty good fights. What was your favorite fight?
Actually, it had to be Robert Lawler versus Ben Askren.
Yeah.
Didn't like the stoppage though.
No, it wasn't really a bad call. Like the ref, you know, I probably would have called it the same way, but had the ref noticed when he dropped his arm, his hand didn't hit the ground. It stayed up. He kind of picked up his hand to see if it would drop, but it didn't go to the ground. Like I think Robbie was just kind of frustrated. Like, okay, is this guy just going to sit here and hold my face or what? And just kind of put his hands to the ground. And the ref called it, and Robbie looked at him like, "What the?" You know. But I can understand the confusion from the ref side.
But he gave him a thumbs up, and he was inside, so it was not like us. Because when we saw it from the TV, he was in the way. We just saw Robbie's arm go limp. But in the inside, he's in the inside. Herb Dean, and he gave him a thumbs up, and he just called it.
Yeah, yeah, and it wasn't. And then when you saw a different angle, the choke wasn't. It wasn't even a choke. It was just a jaw crush. Although people tap out all the time from jaw crushes, but yeah, I don't think Robbie wasn't going to tap out from his jaw crush. You were going to have to cut off his oxygen. But cool. So you know, I'm gonna we'll talk about something I hadn't thought about talking about, but we're going to talk about it. I'm going to bring it up on the air. So you guys don't, I don't think there's a handful of people that know. So this will be news to anyone, you know, the small amount of followers I have are all local anyway. But did you guys have any idea that I was selling the school?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Because you said you've had it listed for like years and years.
Yeah.
And like there's just been a lot of like activity lately. So it's like, what's he doing? It's like, whatever it is, we'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had my school up for sale for 5 years. Yeah. A year after I bought it, we put it up for sale because it was an investment. It was a financial investment for us. And we just always had it up at a good price. You know, what was a good price? It was a commercial property, and we bought the lot across the street, and it's always been on the market. But about 2 weeks ago, we wrote a contract on it. Oh, wow. So the thing about that is it's a commercial property. And well, first off, let's just say that the school's going to go on. So it's the building. It's the building that sold. So we've been looking for places. Just Alex, Jason, me. I'm going to step down from being the owner of the school.
Really?
Just the owner. I don't want to be the owner. I'll still be the black belt, right? But
you'll still be the face, right?
I'll still be the face, right? I'll still be just as involved as ever. I just lost my desire to run a business. I just got sick of it. I really got sick. There's so many headaches involved, and it's not worth it, right? Mm-hmm. Like the revenue for me is easier in IT, right? Right. And 2 jobs is hard. So running it as a business just got to be a headache. It just got to be more work. I enjoy sparring. Anyone that knows me knows I spar every night. But the one thing I am going to look to do is probably teach less kids, which is the hard part, right? Like that's And that's just going to open some opportunity up for for white and blue belts, for blue belts to step up and teach, right? And that's pretty cool because it'll probably work out some arrangements for
So
them
you
where
mean
they can
teaching less kids classes, not
Yeah.
teaching less children.
Right. Yeah. No, the kids aren't going to go away.
Okay.
We're just going to look for some some blue belts to step up and kind of take the lead there.
I love kids class. I think I don't know, I just learn a lot more because your teaching style with the kids is definitely different from adults class. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm watching, I'm like, hey, you've never mentioned that before. And then I'm like taking it into adults class.
I think it had some of the reason why Nikki got really good. She saw super, super fundamental stuff again and again and again, because it is weird being an instructor. You feel an obligation to impress your students. You don't want to go, although the most beneficial really is mastery of the fundamentals. Like it was something I was really impressed. Like there was a couple things when I watched you fight and I was like, okay, we got to work on that. But your trap and roll worked every time. Like and your elbow escape. You trapped and rolled at least 5 times and elbow escape 5 times. It was pretty much unstoppable.
It's all thanks to Craig, though. Like I think we've been working like systematically to get the 4 to 8-year-olds to at least get like a general mastery. Like it's not perfect, but for the last maybe 4 weeks, we've done nothing but trap and roll, guard break, and then maybe and side control. Yeah. And he taught them the high level belt side control where it's not arm across the body, it's hand blocking the hip. So just seeing that every day, I mean, it does get old. I'm like, oh, great, trap and roll again. But then I'm using it more. Before, I didn't trap and roll at all before we started doing that. And then the elbow escapes, I knew I needed to work on that because I did rely on that before we started going that for the kids, but it was super sloppy.
Yeah.
It was more using all my arm strength to get out of there, and then by the time I regain guard, I'm just gonna lay there and not do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you constantly got half guard. Your lockdown was good, so you would go on lockdown, and then if she'd get out of the lockdown, you would you'd just continue with your elbow escape and get back to your guard. So that was really good. But anyway, yeah, we kind of changed subject. So back to the school thing. So I may teach. So what you're going to see is this. You'll probably see a 1-year break from me teaching children. I may teach 1 or 2 days a week. Probably on a good week, I'll probably teach twice, and on a but more often I'll probably teach once, and that'll go on for somewhere for a year and 2 years, because when Ushi turns 5 or 4, right? Hopefully 4, she'll start training, but at the latest 5, it's kind of up to her. Then I'll be at every kid's class because my daughter is gonna be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I want her to be a damn good one. So, but I'll have some time. I'll get to take some time off and recuperate because I've been working 2 jobs, 5 days a week for 14 years now. No, 16 years now. What am I talking about?
That's
16
crazy.
years.
So for the time being, we're still gonna be here.
Yeah. So the reason I hadn't announced it to the class, although the cat's pretty much out of the bag now, is because when you sell a commercial property, you have this period of due diligence where if he finds anything wrong with it, so he has 30 days due diligence where he can come in and bring roofing contractors, HVAC contractors, plumbing contractors, electrical contractors, structural contractors, which he's doing. And they look at the building and see if he finds anything wrong with it, he can back out. Right? Although he's not going to find anything wrong with it, but he could say, well, I don't like the whatever. His roofing contractor could say, or I should say inspector, but they are all contractors. But if his inspector says, oh, well, there's a problem with the roof, it's rusty or whatever, he could back out. And then we have another month, and that month is so after the due diligence is done, then you have a month to close. He has a month to close. So we're looking at May, right?
Okay.
May's the date that we'll probably move into the new school, probably May 1st, and maybe even the last week of April. I think the tentative closing date right now is April 20th or 21st. But Jason, so who's known kind of been more up to date than anyone about this has been Jason, because Jason was helping more than anyone else. So I was always really open with him. I had announced to the school several times. I had sat down and actually told the whole school.
A couple months ago.
Yeah. And said, guys, just want everyone to know the school is for sale. And one day it'll sell. I don't know when it'll happen, but it had been on the market for 5 years. And so first off, there's nothing saying this sale will go through. It could. Sales fall apart all the time. And we could be at this location 5 more years. Mm-hmm. But I always told Jason, I said, hey, when that school sells, do you want to take it? Do you want to be the business owner? I'll still be there teaching. I'm still going to be there teaching as many classes as ever. But that's something he's been wanting to do. And his wife wants to do yoga. So it's a good deal for them. Mm-hmm. Right. So what we're looking for now is like glass frontage storefront, like what most, I think that's the best thing to have, like something like Luis has, or something like, Jack's BJJ or BTT, whatever, because it's good advertising. Like the worst thing about this school is we have so much traffic go by the front, but nobody knows what's going on in here. Mm-hmm. If we did a glass front, I think would have 300 students. I really do. And that was just a huge mistake on my part. I was thinking about security and didn't think about it. And it was like that's a huge expense to put glass all the way down the front. So I think it was twofold. But
so where is the new school going to be?
We don't know yet. Jason's looked at 1 or 2 locations, but nothing's. He can't pull the trigger on anything until we pass due diligence. So a few people already started talking about it, and I wasn't going to talk about it until. But now it's like enough people already know, so I'm just kind of coming out about it. But technically we're not past due diligence. Like the sale he could back out of the sale at no expense to him. So once you go through due diligence, then if he backs out of the sale, he loses his deposit, and he put a nice deposit down, like enough that,
it's kind of a deterrent.
Yeah, at minimum, I'd say it's a deterrent. He didn't want to lose what he put down for sure. So we've been house shopping, but
I'm sure.
But anyway, yeah, this there's a massive overhead with this school. I mean, this is people don't realize that it's 11,000 square feet. It's got 2 second floors.
I always think about the power, how much electricity has to come through here, and heating, especially since your roof is vaulted like so high. I was like, man, the AC bill must be insane every month.
Yeah,
that's enough for me to be like, I'm never gonna own a business. Just paying for electricity.
It's about last month it was about $750, so it's not cheap. Yeah, and that's like bare minimum. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's not splurging, but so there was a huge overhead with the school, right? And man, I just didn't want to run the business side of it. I just didn't want to go out there and hound people for money. Like I didn't. That's the thing about if you're gonna do jiu-jitsu and you love it and you're gonna do that as your business, it's gonna suck the fun out of it, because when you're a student, all those people in your school are your friends. They're your comrades. They're your, they're your family. But when you're the school owner, you can't get close to people. You can't, because you got to be that guy on the first going, hey, or you got to be that guy when someone shows up from out of town. Hey, open mat fee. Hey, and I've just never wanted to do that. Right. And for me, it just takes the friendship out of it. I don't know. You can't be a business owner and be friends with those people at the same time. Yeah. So for me, I've always put everyone as friends first and foremost, which has always made it a shitty business deal for me. But luckily, this was also my home, and So it worked out. But we're going to have a nice school. It's going to be cool. It's going to be, everything's going, I'm giving everything to Jason. I'm giving the mats, the everything he wants. I told him just take what you want. So it's no big deal. So yeah, we're not.
What's he going to do about his other job though?
I think the plan is if he can make if that school will generate what he's earning, he'll just do this full time. Like he loves it. You know, I was the same way when I was in my 30s. I could do this all day long. But you get into your 40s and then you get a couple bad discs in your back and all of a sudden you want a day off, you know?
Well, whatever happens, I'm down to help. Like, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
I'll show up if you call.
Yeah, so that's but you know, nothing's changing. I hope people don't get discouraged and be like, you know, it's the building. It's the building that's going, you know, and there's no one in Jacksonville that really has anything like this. It was a cool idea. And I, you know, when I did it, I thought, man, I'm going to have 200 students, 300 students. It's going to be this awesome thing. And unfortunately, it never worked out like that. You know, there's 20 plus other black belts in Jacksonville. There's, 15 other schools or something. And it's just the competition's too tight. But it'll be in the same area, Jason. Like we talked about it. It's going to be in a 2 to 3 mile radius. So the place I like that I recommended is one exit down, which is 9A and Merrill Road. And there's a shopping center, Big Lot shopping center. It's got
I know what
it's got a lot of open space right now.
I used to live over there near Wedgefield and Westbury.
But I don't know.
Nice.
It's up to Jason. You know, it's going to be Jason's deal. I'm just going to be the black belt doing promotions. So, but again, I'm going to train. My daughter's going to train. You know, don't worry. I mean, very few people have a school this big. You know, we're going to be a normal school. We're going to have a normal sized school like most other schools have. You know, that's the only difference that's going to happen. We're just not going to have the luxury of this massive facility.
Oh, that stinks. Especially when like Luis does his like seminar during the summer.
I know. I told Luis this week and I felt terrible because he's like, man, you know, we've been doing this every year. And that was my idea. You know, I came up with that idea and it was awesome. We'd get somewhere between 100 and 200 people would show up. It was huge. And then we did a cookout at the end. So on the side of the building,
I was really looking forward to that this year too. I was like, dang it, it's my turn to go.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I just watched that Friday, but I was just like, when I watched, it's like, yep, put that on my calendar.
And I think we got between 20 and 30, over 20, you know, between 20 and 30 black belts would show up. Yeah. And some some phenomenal black belts, some great technique sharing going on. But I think Luis will we'll find another home to do it at, you know, whether he rents a school like he does for the seminar or for the competition he puts on, the Jack's BJJ Open, or whether we go to, I think it'd be cool to do a road trip too. Like that'd be super cool. We should do a road trip.
Like one of those like BJJ retreats. I've been looking at those, and it looks so sweet. Like, cause you spend 3 whole days just staying there and doing what you love.
Yeah,
I'd totally be down for that.
I met Christian Graugert, and have you ever heard of the BJJ Globetrotter? Yeah, he wrote a book. It was called the BJJ Globetrotter. But Hoyce and I went to his school in, I think it was Denmark. And it was the coolest school I'd ever. It was cool from the standpoint that, and I believe it's Denmark. It was one of those countries like Denmark. It was either Denmark or Sweden. It was like a Dutch country. But there was this mall, and it was a huge mall. And the mall was converted, or it was that maybe that was its original intention, but it was only exercise places. Like there was an archery school, and then there was a judo school, and then there's a jiu-jitsu school, and then there's like, you know, paintball, and then there's, you know, every kind of
like a recreation mall.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Nice.
It was so cool. And then the center of it was this huge eatery. I thought that was the coolest thing. I had wanted to do something like that. Had I had the money, I would do something like that in the U.S. I think that would be super cool. So what's next, Jeremy? Back to you. What's the next step for you? What's the next goal?
My next goal is to get back on track and start winning competitions. I got Naga coming up on the 16th. Hopefully I get double gold on that one. Fix some of the mistakes I made yesterday.
I made up my mind that well, first off, you did great at the tournament. You were competing against grown men. You know, you're strong. You know, you're 15. You're young, but these guys are in their 20s and they train hard. You know, and they've been training. You know, how long have you been training formally jiu-jitsu? Not grappling with friends or anything like that, but you know, formal jiu-jitsu training.
I think that when I started taking it seriously was when I came here, because in other schools it was just like, oh, there's jiu-jitsu today and then there's no jiu-jitsu tomorrow.
Yeah.
So probably around the same time that I was in this gym, so like 4 months, 5.
Yeah.
That's when I started taking like serious.
And now your stand-up is super good. You know, like I think you'd do great in MMA. I think you'd do, man, you're 15 years old to have stand-up like that. And if we can get, like, that's super, super rare to have stand-up that good. I've seen a lot of MMA fighters. I've trained with a lot of MMA fighters, but like your stand-up is legit.
That's all thanks to my buddy Darnell. He made me push myself to those limits. So many times I was like, I can't do it anymore. He made me go harder and harder.
Was that when you were in Orlando?
No, that was when we had to move to PA.
Oh, okay.
Over there was no jiu-jitsu. It was just stand-up.
Okay.
And we used to just bar. I used to call him like, hey, want to train? He used to show up. We did that for like months. He was the person who actually got my stand-up to this level.
That's cool, man.
Now, if we get your ground game on that same level, you know, and I was watching you guys, and I decided when I was watching you guys that I'm gonna specifically work with you too. Like I made up my mind about that. I'm gonna start spending my sparring time with you guys more than anyone else, and kind of just because I see both of you guys more serious about competition, you know, and not, you know, I've never pushed anyone to compete. Mm-hmm. Like I don't believe in, you know, that's an instructor's agenda to better their school, not to better their school, but to use that as a marketing tool. But that's not fair to push on people. And I've never pushed competition. I don't think it's necessary. I think it even has a touch of ego to it. You know, it's got to be something you want to do. If you want to do it, then by all means, so my thing has always been, if someone comes and says, hey, we want to compete, then I'm all for it. I'll back it. We'll practice for it. We'll get ready for it the way the way other schools do for a competition. But my key thing was always self-defense, right? Like that was the intent of jiu-jitsu. Like people forgot about that. Like I opened my school because of what Hoist Gracie did, not because what Gordon Ryan did or John Danaher or any of these other people. Like I opened up because I saw that a skinny guy could not only just protect himself, you know, but like kick ass, right? That was unreal to me. That's what I wanted to be able to do, and that's what I wanted to be able to teach and share. And the beauty of jiu-jitsu is that you can use it for competition. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I've always believed in. I take that back. I didn't always believe. For the longest time, I limited my jiu-jitsu to my instructor's jiu-jitsu, right? Like I think 11 years, maybe 7 or 8 years went by where I only practiced the moves that my instructor taught. And then I started opening up, right? Then I started saying, wow, like all martial arts are good. What you should do is take in everything and then keep it where I tell you, basically Bruce Lee's mentality. Bruce Lee had a great mentality. that was the theory behind Jeet Kune Do, right? Was that you learn everything and keep what works. So then I started playing with legs and 10th planet and everything I could. And I don't claim to be a master of any, but I definitely have an expansive jiu-jitsu, set where that's not the case with all jiu-jitsu practitioners. So then I did see I understand the infatuation with competition, right? Like I understand the draw, the allure, but it's not for everyone, right? Like there's certain people that just have they have no desire. Mm-hmm. They just want to do this. Either some people are here to get in shape. Some people are here, like Anthony, like that kid. I put you with him a lot, but not just you, we should, that kid's here because he's bullied, right? And you can see why, right? You can imagine he just wants to be able to stand up for himself.
Yeah.
And
he's super sweet. Like just kind of, I don't want to say awkward, but he's unsure. Like he's just like, and I told him last week, the last time I saw him, I was like, okay, after I compete, every night that we're here together, we're gonna roll. Like I wasn't gonna give him a choice because he said, I just want to build up confidence to get to rolling. And then I was like, well, you're not gonna build up confidence until you start rolling. So that's what I want to work on with him. Like I don't necessarily always like repping with him because he's unsure, and sometimes I don't get a lot out of it, especially if we're doing like advanced series stuff. Then I'm like, oh gosh, I need like a bigger person who's stronger for me to be able to really get what I want to get out of class tonight. But other than that, like he's super sweet, and like I think it's a mentality thing too, like because in the beginning I always got in my head, like he does, about physical strength. Like he's always like, I'm not strong enough for this. And whenever he says that, I'm like, eventually you will be strong enough. Just do what you can. Yeah. And he's not right at the do what you can stage yet. He's just kind of, he's quitting before he does it, right? So I'm like, I'm going to crush that and make him more confident because I can see that, I don't want to say people like him or kind of label him, but eventually if he doesn't if he's not proactive about it, he'll just quit because he'll feel like he's not progressing. So somebody has to push him, and I think since I'm the smallest person in the gym and I'm not too aggressive anyways, it's good for me to do that. So hopefully it works out.
I think so. People like him are the real reason schools like this should exist, right? Like so many people are like, I'm into it to be a champion, to be to get paid, to get famous, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. Like, man, if I could have, I would have, for sure. I got into this too late, but it's really here for people like that. People living a tormented life, right? Like this guy, he's tormented. Like he didn't want to go to school, and if he had your ability, man, and that's what we got to teach him, that he can have that, right? Like it's just and I think that's the power of jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu will over time crack that shell, and and that's what we got to help him with. So yeah, we got to work with him. So switching gears, back to let's touch on kids class real quick, because so my school has, I don't know if you know, it has more kids than adults. We've got about
30,
40 kids.
Is that including the kids that kind of
active, all active?
Yeah.
I can show it to you. I'll show you after class.
Well, I believe you.
Yeah, we've got 40 active kids, but we on a good day we've had 30, like in the past 2 weeks. We've gotten 30, but they still weren't all here. And those are active and all coming in 1 week.
Yeah.
And if they all showed up on the mats one time, would have 40. So adults are about 35, right? We've got about, which is, that's not huge, 75 people in the school, arguably 80. But when I was in Miami, I got to train the Valente brothers, and those guys kind of opened my eyes to teaching children. Because if you want to make a living in this art, there's no better way to make a living than teach children. The problem with adults is adults will leave the moment they think someone else is better, right? They're like, oh, this guy's, I can be on his team. I can be affiliated with this person. They think that being affiliated with them somehow makes them better or gives them more clout, right? Or, I just don't see the same loyalty out of adults as you invest in a child, a child, they'll stay with you from 5 years to 20, 25, then they get to see how good they can really become, right? So someone starts with you at 5, at 6, they don't learn a little bit and go, man, if I was over here, what would I be learning? If I were over there, if I were at this school. Instead, they stick with you till 16, and then they're really damn good. They realize they can hang with anybody, right? Because it's really about putting in work. Like the Meow Brothers. Like if you want to be good in jiu-jitsu, all you have to do is put in work. If you're just not putting in the work, you're just not, just people ask them like, how'd you get so good? I think they have the best answer of anyone out there. It's like, shut up and train. That's always their answer. How'd you get, just shut up and train. Just all you gotta do is shut up right now. Just start training. Just roll every day, constantly. The more you roll, for me, I put in an hour a day for 5 days a week for 16 years, and I think that's reflects in my level. I think that's where I am, if you put in that kind of time, that's how good you're going to be, But so I'm curious, Jeremy, you have any intents to fight MMA?
Yeah, I was waiting until I was 18 to make my amateur debut, but now I just want to do it. Because every time I spar with somebody, I hang. Like, I think his name is Cameron, big guy, we boxed. He was hitting me with good shots. I was just eating them and giving back.
Yeah.
That's what I like about stand-up. It's like, I don't get cocky. You hit me, I'll hit you. Let's see who got the better training. Yeah. Let's see who was up all night training, cutting weight. That's what I like about the sport.
Yeah. I think at your weight, I can't imagine, there's no one that's going to tool you. Your stand-up is like really, really top-notch. So then it's all about your ground game, and your ground game has come a long way. Like I've watched your ground game come, and it's still got a lot of room. You like you said, 4 or 5 months or something seriously. So now we just gotta build that. If we can get those two the same level, man, I'd love to watch you fight in the ring. I could imagine where you could go. I'd love to see it.
Do they have teen amateur fights?
I'm not sure what age you can start, but I think at like 16 or 17. I want to say, because Tony Jared's son Morgan trained. He started with Chris Kofstadt, but I want to say at 17 he was holding 1 or 2 titles. He was fighting like Cannon Fights and some other organization, but I don't think he was 18. But I could be wrong. I think he was fighting at 17-ish.
I mean, maybe with like parental consent.
Maybe.
And we know your mom would
be
like all about it. She'd be like, "Yes, that's my son."
But we're not in a rush. You got plenty of time. Yeah, I'm gonna start working on you guys. Like Nikki's far enough along now. Like Nikki was actually, I think you always have a project as an instructor. Like Jalen was the first young person that really stuck with me. That really, she was the first when I started that was actually my third school. This was my third school, because my first school was St. Augustine Combat Club in St. Augustine, and then that didn't work out. So I opened a school in the Philippines. And then when I moved back here, I opened up this school, and I was teaching at another school first, but Jalen followed me, right? And she stayed with me, and Jalen became my project. And I always worked with Jalen to make her jiu-jitsu as come up as much as it could. If you all had met Nikki, when she was so timid.
I hear that all the time.
She was quiet, reserved. She didn't have the confidence she has now. Like, you know, now, yeah, it even changed her personality. You know, like she's no longer timid. Now she feels like, and I love what it did to her personally. Like, I think, man, when I'm out, I feel like I'm with one of my boys. Like, I feel like I got backup, you know, like she's a wrecking machine. But like, I'd love to see someone underestimate her. And that's the cooler thing about being about being out with her is that she's totally unestimated, like, or underestimated. Is someone would turn their back to her or something, you know, like disregard her, and then it'd be over, you know. So it's like she's my secret like my undercover bodyguard, you know. It's like I'll handle business and she can come out of nowhere and just jack someone up.
Yeah, if I hadn't known Nikki, right, just from looks alone, she's just like, I mean, she's cute and she's small, but not like super tiny. But you would never be like, oh, I better be careful around her.
No,
that's not her. And she's also like super positive and bubbly and stuff. Not the type of person that you'd be like, man, she's gonna fuck me up. But that's exactly who she is.
Like, I'm out with the guys all the time. We're always eating, you know, lunch or something like me, and we have the Saturday group of guys, and we always go to like Epic or something afterwards. And it's come up several times that we're always like, man, some dude, you know, they'll go in the store where she's working and just have no idea, you know, like that she would just totally kick their ass, you know, some teenage guy talking shit or something like that. And I just think that's cool. I want my daughter to have that ability, and I'm sure she will, because she loves grappling. Like, she totally grapples with her teddy bears. She gets on them and gets on top and won't let them move, and, you know, she moves around.
Do an armbar in the tournament in the dummy.
Yeah, she moves around too, like Neon Belly. Like, she moves sides, north, south. It's like, she's only 3, but she enjoys that. She likes to dominate her teddy bears, and it's pretty fun to watch. We got a video, but I keep trying to get Chen to upload it, but she hasn't yet, because she's in her diapers. Like, Chen's like, no, she's in her diapers. I'm like, she's 3. Who cares if she's in her diapers? But
I'm excited for our kids to train together.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to try for 4 with Ezra.
Yeah. How old is Ezra now?
He's 2 and 4 months. So, like, only 8 months younger than she is.
But it's cool because your daughter and son will be helping my daughter. You know, it'll be...
and they love each other too. Like, every time they're so excited to see her, and she's excited to see them. And I hope that we can stay like together as a jiu-jitsu family for like a long time, because I mean, I hear about people having to leave their gyms after 5 years, and I'm like, that would kind of like kill me a little bit inside. Like, if you had to move or something like that. But, you know, like, you gotta live your life.
This gym has such a good vibe now. Like, I went through these shaky times where I just got so frustrated and so disenfranchised being like, honestly, for the first time in my life ever, I thought about not selling the school. I thought about, because like in the last year, it's the first time that I ever had a profitable school. Not by much, but still, it was nice that it generated something. Because prior, I never had at best I'd break even or something. Again, a lot of that is the way I run it as a business, or the way I don't run it as a business, so to say. I mean, anyone else that's successful in this, they have registration fees, they do contracts. I don't do any of that. I don't sell gis. I don't have a registration fee. I don't do contracts. I just do month to month. What the hell just happened? There we go.
And you know that.
What the hell? Hold on. It just stopped recording. Hold on. You have to.
It's not one of these, is it?
No, it had power. I don't know why it did that. Let me just stop it. Let me just verify that we didn't have any.
What does your jacket say?
Armbar.
Oh, where'd you get that from?
Fanatics.
Hmm.
1 second here. Just make sure it recorded all that.
Oh my God, your mom and her cigarette breaks at competition. She's like, I gotta go smoke. And I was like, you better not leave because he's gonna start in a minute. And then she went to go leave. And then
Yeah,
you started, and she just had to like run. It was so funny seeing her run across, like, I'm not gonna miss this. She's so cute. Your mom's cool though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I find it weird that you guys call her by her first name though. It's like, I'm just like, what? It's like, take that back.
Okay, yeah, we didn't lose anything. It just shut down for some weird reason. All right, it's gonna start. It's still recording. I didn't stop that one.
Oops.
It's all right. Just had a little bit of editing to do with this in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're back. I don't know why my computer stopped recording, but we're back to recording. It just went dim and stopped recording. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking about?
You were talking about how to make the business profitable, and I was gonna say that, like, 10th Planet, Brian has like a bunch of sponsors too, and I think it's like 4 or 5, and like I see him doing his thing, like making his gym grow, and I wonder, like, that seems like it's a lot of work, like, and like thinking about you have like a 9 to 5, and then you do this. Where would be the time to get sponsors and then put it out there and really like cultivate that kind of like outward image to go to school?
I think some of it is some of it is I'm not 100% comfortable being a teacher. Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoy teaching. I do. But there's times I don't want to be the teacher. There's situations I just don't want to deal with. It's just easier to be a student, right? I like the idea more of a jiu-jitsu commune or something, like a commune, like a jiu-jitsu co-op, right? Yeah. I like that idea more, where I can, where everyone works with everybody, I think there's a lot of, there can be a lot of ego in being a school instructor. And then there's this thing of, I don't know if you noticed, but I never wear my brand. I don't even like the idea of a brand. And even when I go to competitions, like the last 10 competitions I've gone to, I haven't wore a jiu-jitsu shirt. I would just show up in a plain shirt. Yeah. Because 10 years ago, so life takes changes, right? And there was this period of time where I was jacked. I was on steroids, and I was like 215 pounds, and I was all about my brand, and I was all about marketing myself, and I was all about but a little bit of time went by, and I didn't like who I was. I didn't like who I was becoming. If I look back on myself, I was like, man, I'm just like a total douchebag. Who would like me, right? And I just said I wanted to simplify my life, and I wanted to be who I am. I just said, if I'm 150 pounds, I'm 150 pounds. This is me. I'd rather be around people who like me for exactly who I am, right? Not this guy I'm trying to be, but the guy that I was born to be. So I stopped even having protein shakes. Like I just said, my body's going to be what it's going to be. Like I'm 170 pounds soaking wet, so I'm 170 pounds. And I'm not going to try to, I don't like the idea of, I just don't like the idea of this brand, right? Like that's just me. I'm all for it. I'm all for it at the school. It's one of the reasons I don't have shirts. It's one of the reasons school shirts. It's one of the reasons I quit selling gis. I used to have school gis and school shirts and all these things, and everyone just kind of bothered me again and again and again. I kind of caved and got some stickers. But I'd rather not. I'd rather just wear a plain black hat if I'm going to wear a hat. I'd rather wear a plain shirt if I'm going to wear a shirt. I think that, like, I think this became part of a spiritual quest for me, where also you like, you know, I used to want like a really nice fancy car and a really nice fancy house, and now I just want to be a minimalist. I just want one vehicle. I want it to be paid for. I don't care if it's 10 years old. I want a small house that's little and easy to clean. And that to me was a huge leap forward, like spiritually. I feel like I leaped past, like, you know, 50% of society. I don't know. That was just something that happened to me that I'm kind of proud of the fact, right? Like, I'm kind of proud of, you know, if you walk around with all this hype, you create this hype of yourself. You have to live up to it, right? It's like, it's easier for me. I'd rather be underestimated than overestimated, right? You go around creating this hype. You know, I'm just, man, I've got this brand I've sold everywhere. And then you go into this fight, you have so much to live up to, right? Whereas I have no brand. I have no, if I go into a fight, I'm totally underestimated. And I like that more, right? And it's not about fighting, it's about everything. It's about life. And I'd rather be underestimated in business. I'd rather be underestimated in, it's nice when, you know, like, let's just say buying a house. If I go to buy a house, I show up in a Ferrari, you know, and I make an offer for $160,000 on a $170,000 house. The guy might go, yeah, you know, someone else, 5 offers, you know, come up with some bullshit, right? But looks at me and underestimates me and say, it's probably all he's got. Okay, 160. I'd rather, you know, I think that I'd rather be underestimated. It's just that simple. I'd just rather, you know, everything about me today is simple and
whatever is the least like stressful.
All my clothes, I get everything from what's it called, Old Navy, everything. And I don't wear watches, I don't wear gold, but I just remember myself 10 years ago, and I had a $400 wallet, you know.
Why?
Exactly.
Did you have $400 in your wallet?
I did. Yeah, I mean, like, not to be cocky. I did. I think what happened. I had an IT company. I started in '99. Are you aware? I don't know if you knew, but it exploded, right? Like, not on its own. Like, I fucking, it was elbow grease. Like, I beat the streets 12 hours a day. I went and knocked on business after business after business, and I gave away my services at first to get my foot in every door. And I built it to a like a $2 million a year company. And at one point in time, I probably had 30 or 40 employees, just, you know, and I was traveling. I think I spent 2 years just traveling. Well, more than 2 years. I spent 2 years just in the Philippines, just like hanging. I had like 3 condos there. I had a car there, a motorcycle, 3 houses here, I was spending the money as fast as it came in. And that business crumbled. Like, it's amazing. For 15 years, it did this well. And then in the snap of a finger, in the bat of an eye, it just all crumbled. And I think a lot of that was me changing and saying, I don't want to live this lifestyle anymore. Like I don't want to grind this hard. I don't want to get up and, 6 a.m., put on a suit, go deal with traffic, go drive to meeting after meeting. Like, I just said, I think part of it is I just kind of let it crumble. Like,
were you kind of relieved when it happened?
Yeah. Oh my God, man, my whole life. And then so that kind of happened when I bought my building. Like, this transition of me happened when I bought this building. And even in my first year, I was like, man, I don't want to do this now. Now I don't want to be this big, because I even remember, like, when I bought the building, it was going to have like this big neon sign across the front, and no one was going to be able to miss it. It was going to be all about ego, right? It was going to be all about Checkmate Jiu-Jitsu and Bobby Thompson. And then I just kind of said, I don't want to be around assholes. I don't want to be around egotistical people that are I want to be around humble people.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this, there was just this transition of me where I think I turned into a better person. I don't know. So
That's good though.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the vibe of the school where it's like no pressure.
I just want to
Nobody has
have
do
fun,
anything.
and I think it's a better way to learn jiu-jitsu,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you go into some jiu-jitsu schools and it's a fight. It's like they run it like they're making fighters and athletes. Everyone, all this fucking crazy 30-minute calisthenics, couple hundred sit-ups or whatever. And it's like, I go to that and I'm like, that's not what Alio had in mind, right? You all are. It's the instructor has decided that he wants to have a name for himself and he wants to have, the top competition team. And I'm okay with that. Like you can do that. That needs to be on you, right? Like that needs to, the school will support you. If you say, hey, I want to do this, and other people may follow you, that's great. And you may end up with your own school out of that. You may end up do with your own career out of that. But I looked at it and I just said, for me to do that, that's wrong. Like for me to push that on my students.
Yeah.
I wanted a school, because I lost sight of all that, right? I lost sight of that. I wanted a school that was about what Alio had in mind, right? And it was about self-defense. I think that was the idea behind Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, self-defense, right? I think it turned into something no one ever thought it was going to turn into.
Mm.
And now you have all these people, they've become celebrities in a sense. He and Henner today are celebrities. I don't think they know how to handle it. They never.
But they're like super humble though, because I follow them and like the things that they say is like very much like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. It's always about like, I think Henner said something about how Jiu-Jitsu isn't supposed to feel like work. Like you're not supposed to feel like you're obligated to anybody. It's your journey and it's supposed to be fun. And if it's not, that's not Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. And I think you can become better than ever. There's no drawback to training the way we train, right? I believe that if you take our guys with the same amount of time in, you take other people from other schools. Now you're going to have different skill levels, right? There's nothing you can do about that. But in general, I think we have the best way of growing. I do. In general, I think that we create the best, and that's all about that style of enjoy it, right? And then if you want to grow beyond that, if you want to grow into a fighter, that's different, right? Like that's another step that you have to take, and you find the place where that feels right, and you're going to get the right support, right? Like I think we offer that here. I do. Like I'd love to watch. I stepped in the ring once, and I made some mistakes. And looking back, I could have done it like 1,000 times better. But I don't. It's kind of frustrating. Like I didn't listen to the people around me, and I didn't train any stand up whatsoever. None. I just said, all right, I'm going to use, and I never envisioned fighting someone that refused to fight on the ground. Like I thought I'm going to get them on the ground. And like, that was the first time I fought someone that just like did everything in their power to not engage me on the ground. So I was just trying to hold someone on the ground. Like if I would start to move at all, their only thing is to get up. Like prior to that, if you saw a fight, people would engage you on the ground, they'd try to punch you on the ground. They'd try to fight you on the ground. But this guy knew that I was a purple belt, in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and he stayed away from the ground as hard as. And I ended up striking with this guy, and I was not a striker, and he was like on your level, and I was like a tenth of as good as I am now, and I'm not good now, right? But I'm like, imagine me being a tenth of that, right? And I was sitting there trying to like just throw sucker punches at this guy in an MMA fight. It was terrible, but I did get him on the ground 4 or 5 times, and If heel hooks would have been legal, I think I could have took that match. But he did limp off because I got it the straight foot lock that you got, and I was going after it so hard, but he just wouldn't tap. After the match, he was limping. But he's a cool dude. He was a very accomplished fighter, and who became a pro fighter. I think that was his last amateur fight with me. But after that, I learned. I was like, man, if you're gonna fight MMA, it's not self-defense. There are the number one problem is, I didn't care about. I just said, well, I'm going to use jiu-jitsu as self-defense, right? And I used the Gracie. I watched how Hoist fought, and I studied that. And he used the Gracie stomp, the Peizao, and I'm like, I'm going to use the Gracie stomp. I'm going to use the Peizao. That's going to be my entry every time. Like in my head, I've done that like a bazillion times. That's what I would do in a fight. That's what would be natural for me. And so I remember the night of the fights, I come out and they're doing a rules meeting. They're like, no linear kicks. I'm like, well, what's a linear kick? And they're like, well, that's when you strike down at the knee in a straight line. I'm like, okay, that was 100% of my stand-up. You just took 100, like not 50%, not 25%. You just took 100% of my stand-up, right? Like, luckily, I'd kick the bags, and hit the bags, but I never sparred with anyone, right? So I had some decent power in my punches and kicks, but I never striked with people that actually moved.
Oh no.
That was a problem.
Oh God, coach. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're like, I'm gonna be on the ground. And
yeah.
The universe was like, no, motherfucker, you're not.
I know, yeah. So that guy he did not want to fight me on the ground, and he even got caught putting Vaseline on his body, which is illegal. Like he Vaselined his whole body up. But anyway, they offered me a win, and I said, no, I'll fight him. We'll just towel him off. But yeah. So then I spent about 6 months training with some guys that were like black belts in freestyle kickboxing. And I know I got a lot better. Like my striking, like it was every day for 6 months. At least I figured I'd be like a blue belt in striking, right? Like that was my goal. I said, well, I want to be just like if I can be like a equivalent of a blue belt in striking, I'll be happy. And I think I could grow beyond that, but it has to be the right person. That's the right style, right? Like I'm still at the point in my striking where I want to point spar. That's all I want to do. I don't want to. I'm not ready to slug yet. Like I don't have that confidence.
You're not on Jeremy's level yet.
I'm not on Jeremy's level, right? Like I can stand up with Jeremy a little bit, and just all I try to do is keep him away. But if we start teeing off, I'm like, I'm not.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'd rather not do that. That's not fun for me, right? But you can grow from point sparring. I know this because when I was doing it every day, then I got where I could hang with those guys, and I got where my confidence got way better in a fight, right? But yeah, I know it's got a long way to grow. I know like I'm nowhere near an advanced striker, but again, I'm 10 times better than I was, so that's a good thing. Like most people, if someone were to come into school and they weren't a trained striker, I feel like I'd have a huge advantage on them. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just how I feel. And I've striked with some people who weren't trained, who didn't spend their, and I clearly got the better of them. But yeah, I would work with you more, but we gotta just like bring down your level a little bit, because you're a pretty intense striker.
It's like so hard to watch you like strike with adults, because I'm like, God, he's 15, and then I'm like, you've got that youthful like vigor about you. It's like, oh shit, he's whooping him, and then the grown ass men punch you, and I'm like, I think it's the mother in me, right? Because I'm kind of like motherly towards you sometimes. I'm like, eat your food, like get up, do this, whatever. Why do you smell like that, or whatever, whatever. So like when I watch you with DeCarlo, it's not Cameron, it's the other guy, DeCarlo. Yeah. I was just like, he needs to put a stop to this right now, because he's a huge dude, and you got like skinny little arms and stuff, but you were like, you two were going at it, and I had to walk away. I was just like, no,
Yeah.
I can't watch that.
And see, like that's another thing. Like if you and I go at it, you're a better striker than me. There's no question. Like I wouldn't argue that. I can hit a lot harder than I do. I'm not trying to remotely connect with you though, because I can't control that. You know, I'm not good enough to get in there. Like it's either I got to go 100% or 5%. Like
You don't got middle ground yet.
I don't have middle ground. That is, I don't know. I haven't trained long enough to say why it's so hard. Maybe it's hard for me. Maybe it's the way I trained. Maybe I didn't learn correctly. But for me, point sparring is how I need to. That's the only way I'm comfortable to learn. And yeah, it's just weird. Like when I was training with those guys from these freestyle kickboxing, which basically everything went in that, backhands, everything, but it wasn't a hard hit. You know, it was like a really soft, like anyone could do it. You know, but man, I was throwing all kinds of really good combinations back then, you know, and they were helping me. They were, you know, I had my favorite combos that I used, and that was 2009. So that was 10 years ago. And I'd like to get back. But we'll start working. We'll start working some stand up. I'd like to get some guys. I'd like to get a stand up class going. I think that'd be super cool.
I think Jason could do it. Like not the striking part, but getting people. He seems to be good at getting people.
Yeah.
You know, like, and
But see, for me, it's different because at your age, you know, I think one of the reasons it's different is in your head, you're preparing for a fight, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I need to prepare for a fight. At my age, I'm like, the chances of me getting in a fight again are slim to none. And if I do, they're going to be on the ground before they know what happened. Like, I'm just going to be like, oh, hey, they're not going to know what happened. I'm just going to be on top of them on the ground. You know, and it may not be that clean. It may be uglier, but that's how my head thinks. I'm just like, and if I have to, I'll throw one or two punches. That's probably how I do it. I throw two punches and then double leg. But I'm hoping in my head, I'm like, that'll probably never happen again. I hope it doesn't. Like, I don't want to fight anymore. I'm not looking to prove myself anymore. I think
But that helped me a lot in sparring too
Yeah.
with Darnell, because he's a fighter. He has the passion. If you see him, he's gonna end up in UFC. But at that time, all I knew was 1-2 and maybe a leg kick.
yeah.
Because the things that I was doing in karate was not working on him. He was just like parry, slip, and I was like, okay. So he made me be like, okay, so what if I do this? That's the good thing about sparring, because yeah, you can hit it back, but it's not gonna hit you back.
Yeah.
That's the difference with a partner sparring. That's why I agree with people that don't wear headgear while sparring, because first it damages you more, and it'll give you brain damage. Plus you have to be fixing it, and when you're in sparring, there's like a moment. You guys are having a moment. You're trading punches. You're slipping. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm hitting him, and then you get caught and you'll be like, oh, give me a second, I have to fix my headgear. Because it's like a moment.
But
You're
see,
like in the lab.
the problem about my argument with training and hitting like relatively hard is that that's not sustainable, right? Like if you look at Muhammad Ali today, he's, for lack of a better word, and he's mentally handicapped, right? And that's Huntington's disease is common for boxers, right? Like with, the fluid stops dripping on your brain, as it was explained to me, and all of a sudden your brain stops working. Jiu-jitsu is sustainable. You can do it all day, every day. But, you get hit too many times, or if you want to, so it just seemed logical for me to use the jiu-jitsu mentality towards striking, and then everyone would start striking. Like if you had that mentality out there, and everyone saw that, oh, it doesn't hurt, I can learn in a fashion. Like, I like the freestyle kick, the point sparring. I know it's different, but you can learn how to move, right? You can learn how to move like that. You can learn how to slip. You can learn how to, because you can still throw all those combos. you don't have to hit them with all you have on the chin just to prove you can get them on the chin or come from on the side or slip out this way or, you know, you can still work the same stuff and just try to kind of touch them, connect with them, whatever. I know it changes when you're going full. I know that. But what I think happens is it's like jiu-jitsu. It's like Anthony saying if he can get to that comfort level. If you can let people get to the level where they're possibly even with you, then they can do that because, you know, you're not just beating up on them. They're not taking 20 punches, 50 punches of damage, right? Like you're going to hit them. They may connect with you. Now you're both very leery. You're both being very careful, you know. So for me, the biggest thing about martial arts and the way I want to train is sustainability, right? Like I don't want to do damage to my brain, and I want to be able to do what I'm doing my entire life. So that's why I chose jiu-jitsu, and that's why I gravitated to jiu-jitsu. And I think jiu-jitsu is still singularly the most powerful martial art. I don't care. I will still stand by that today, right? The UFC's changed today. Everyone wants to strike. Crone came in and proved, and so has you know, what's his name? I can't remember the 145 pounder that under the Gracies that's in there right now. He's one of the top contenders in the 145 division. That's going to be interesting though, because Crone's in that division too. I can't think of his name.
Was it the guy who heel hooked BJ Penn?
That's right.
He's a triangle guy. Oh. He's a triangle guy. He's got really good Brian Ortega. Yeah, Brian Ortega, right? So like jiu-jitsu does work today. The problem is everyone just wants to bang it out, you know. And that happened with BJ Penn. BJ Penn was one of the top grapplers in the world, right? He was at the time he was the fastest black belt in the world, 5 years to black belt. And then all of a sudden he just becomes a striker. He just wants to bang with everyone, right? It's like, dude, that's not what got you into the UFC. Why are you trying to, you know, get the fight on the ground, prove, you know, showcase your jiu-jitsu. I hate it when fighters do that, you know. Jiu-jitsu still works. I don't understand why everyone just wants to turn into a boxing match today.
Yeah, now most people, they don't like when UFC fighters end up on the floor. Like yesterday when Woodley was fighting Kamaru Usman, the referee standing him up saying, "You're fighting, guys. We're not just like wrestling." And I was like, well, that is a martial arts, and this is MMA after all. And I got pissed at the referee. Yeah,
so that's why I was never a big. When the UFC first came out, I was a fan. I was huge. But when Pride came out, I shifted 100% to Pride. I never missed a Pride. I watched every Pride live. Because Pride, they didn't stand them up. I mean, it was like the crowd in Japan, when they would go to the ground, you wouldn't hear any booing. You wouldn't hear anything. You could drop a pin. You could hear a pin. It was just, you can't hear anything. All you'd hear was the mats going. That's it. You'd hear just, and the Japanese audience loved it. They just watched. But all they want to see is knockouts in the UFC. So we cater to the strikers, and everyone tries to outstrike each other. I can understand it. Look, if you go in there and your striking is twice as good as the guy you're fighting, right? And you're just, hell yeah, stay standing up. But if you think you're the superior grappler, you should be trying to get that guy on the ground and out-grapple him, right? That's what I would do if I were in the UFC. If I fought, I know it's funny, but if I ended up in the UFC, absolutely, I'd be trying to get my guy to the ground.
And this is what happened with Brian Ortega. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He tried to bang it up with Max Holloway. He got lit up.
Yep. But and Ortega's a good striker though, right? Like against other people, he is a good striker. Max Holloway is just on another level. Now, if he would have got Max on the ground, he arguably would have won that fight. You know, I think he shouldn't. You know, you don't see Crone trying to bang it out with people, right? He's not. You didn't see Hickson trying to bang it out with people. So, how much time you got, Joan?
Whenever.
Oh, you got the night free. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nick's home all the time doing disability stuff, so. So, are you So we were riding in the car over yesterday, right, on the way to 10th Planet, and Jeremy goes, "Look at those fake clouds." And his mom was like, "What? Shut up. Those clouds are real." And I was like, "Yeah, the clouds are real, but space is fake." And then, like, I had to explain to her, like, she's like, "Oh, you don't believe in space?" I was like, "Yes, I believe in space, but I don't believe in, like, space information," right? And then, like, it turned into a whole thing. So I'm curious, like, are you, like, into that? Because you sent me, oh, yeah, he's into, like, the Jewish conspiracy thing, too. And that was surprising, too, like, when you sent me that picture where it was, like, all, like, the media personnel that own all the stations on TV, and like, what was it, 95% of them were Jewish?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was 98.
Yeah.
But
That's
even like, yeah, y'all are gonna push me down this road.
Well, it's Jiu-Jitsu and coffee.
I know.
Like,
I'm trying to, at least on my personal time, I'm trying to stay away from, what's the word? From esoteric beliefs, right? Like I have a ton of esoteric beliefs. Just because, man, I see the tension. Like, my friends don't interact on Facebook. It's all I want to talk about. It's all I study. It's all I watch. It's all.
To be fair, though, I can see why there's tension, though. You're kind of a jerk when it comes to enlightening people, because like when you say, "Hey, I'm open for exchange," and then you're like, "Oh, you're just another cog in the wheel, man. Get off. Like, just open your eyes, man." It's like,
I know.
You're telling them to see it your way.
Yeah.
But and then
I know. I can't do it any other way.
Yeah, like you're like, "Hey, I agree that you can have your own opinion, but you're an idiot." Like, that's basically what you do.
I know.
And I'm like, "Coach,
and that's
man,
why
you don't have
I
to
can't.
Be so savage."
It's so obvious to me. It's so fucking obvious to me. I'm just like, bro, fucking open your eyes, right? If you can't, and if I talk about it, I can't even rationalize it any other way than that. My brain just says, have you not looked at the NASA fucking footage out there? They're faking. It's all fake. It's like, have you not looked at the SpaceX? It's all. I don't see a fifth grader would look at it and go, "That's fake." Why? Like, you can. That's green screen. That's augmented reality. There's wires right there. That's not a fucking satellite. It's hanging on a string. Who can't? Star Wars did a better job in the 70s. Like,
Star Wars did do a better job.
They did do a better job, and I'm like, why? How can you not be interested? But what I realized was I started sharing this with like people that I considered intelligent, like and they have cognitive dissonance, that their brain refuses to see the reality that I see. They go, like for me, the most blatant one of all times is when these guys one guy does a flip and his buddy reaches over and he pulled him back by the wire. He like grabbed the wire and pulled him back beside him, because when he did his little flip, he kind of started going that way, and he grabbed the wire. Clearly, like, and my buddy's like, "Nah," he grabbed his pocket, and I'm like, "Oh my God, how are you seeing that?" He pulled the wire. But I watch these day and night, and there are countless bazillions and bazillions and bazillions of videos of NASA on wires and on green screen and CGI, and like the most damning is the ISS has between flurfers or flat earthers or whatever you want to call them, or let's call them truthers. I don't care what you call them. We don't all have the same beliefs. That's another thing I realized is that, but let's just look at the ISS and look at something strange about it. There's two ways that they film footage on the ISS. There are either a group of people always, this is weird, they're always standing still. So they got a camera set up and there's like 1 or 2 or 5 people just like right here in front of the wall. And that's called, so between the conspiracy theorists, they call that extended mode, because you can do that all day long. And then you have full motion mode. And full motion mode is the one where they're moving in the ISS. They're like, "Hey, what? I'll swim through it," right? Well, those cuts, they have to cut like every 45 seconds to a minute. And the reason is that that's filmed in a 0G plane. and you can only dive down. You can only go parabolic. It's called going parabolic. You can only go parabolic for about a minute. So they have to keep putting them together. So you keep seeing these little stitches where they stitch them together, right? And it's like, but here's what's really interesting. Like people will be like, oh no, it's like, no. If you doubt it, if you take either of these two modes and speed them up 2 times, in all the full motion modes, you can hear the jet engines. You can hear them. You can hear the jet engines. It's because they use software to cut out that frequency of the jet engine, but it can't do it perfectly. And when you speed it up, you can hear it. If you speed it, and I've got tons of these videos like that, and where people have sped them up, and you can clearly hear it's like, that bitch she's on a plane. You can hear the engines. It's so fucking obvious that ISS is fake, and the moon landing was fake. And basically, we've never been in space. That's my belief, is that we have not been in space. And why wouldn't we? Today, we would have the technology. If you could do it, we would be there. Like, we've got SR-71 Blackbirds. We had that in the 60s, right? We were doing Mach 3 in the 60s. We would go into space if it were possible today. The reason is because there's a firmament, and there's waters above and waters below. This is my belief system today, right? And now I don't give a damn. Like, when I found all this out, I felt like I could just tell everyone, and everyone would be like, oh, and then we all know, right? That's the first thing. That's phase 1. Phase 1 is like, are you fucking kidding me? I got to tell everyone. And this is going to change everyone's lives like it did mine. It changed my life, right? And then you realize that everyone just thinks you're crazy, and you think you'll defend yourself. And you go, no, look here, see, look at this. I'm not crazy, look. And they're like, nah, bro, he just pulled the pocket. You know, it's like, you can't even see reality the way I see it. So then I just realized, I don't know, maybe we're in different realities. Maybe this isn't even, maybe it's not round or flat. Maybe it is a simulation, like Elon Musk. But the other frustrating thing about it is, and I'm sorry to take over, but if we, you know, the other frustrating thing about it is if you're atheist and I say I'm Catholic, no big deal. We're not going to sit and argue about it. You're not going to assume I'm stupid, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm Christian and you're Muslim, I'm not getting, your religion makes no sense to me. I'm not going to if you're a Scientologist, I'm not going to think you're any less intelligent. If you tell me you believe in simulation theory, I'm not going to assume you're any less intelligent, right? I'm not going to be like, you're a fucking dumbass, right? Mm-hmm. But if you tell someone you think the earth is flat, they're going to be like, you're a fucking retard. It's like, oh, I can believe in Easter Bunny. I can believe in Santa. I can believe in this guy in the clouds. I can be an agnostic, an atheist. I can be I can be Hindu. I can believe in whatever religion I want or lack thereof, or I can believe in space, which space is just as kooky, right? There's no end to it. And there's all this, you know, anything that is odd about flat Earth is equally odd about space, but we just grew up with that, so we accept it.
Yeah. I mean, I saw somebody online, they had equated a flat earther's stupidity to anti-vaxxer stupidity. And I was like, first of all, flat earthers aren't harming anybody with their beliefs, right? And there is proof. I mean, I guess I just was offended. I was like, are you kidding? Like, no. But I was going to ask you, how do you feel about them trying to go back to the moon now?
Well,
I posted an article.
Yeah,
earlier.
no, it's you can't, right? Like, in my belief system, you can't go to the moon because the moon's not. If you're not, this is another stage that you may or may not reach. But the moon is a luminary. It's not a. If you're asking me, this is interview Bobby Day. You can't land on the moon. It's not a planet. It's not round. It's not even solid. It's just a luminary. You can't land on a luminary, right? I know this might sound crazy as hell, but that's what I believe. There's videos out there, and I could show you why I believe that.
When you say it's a luminary, are you like basically equating it to something like the bat signal, like a giant light in the sky?
No, a hologram, and more than likely a technology that we don't even understand. More than likely a technology that is beyond our comprehension. So phase 1 for me was coming into, I was an atheist before I got on this to prove to someone that the earth was round. Like that's how I got into this. Life was good for me. I was normal. My friends thought I was relatively intelligent. And then I got tired of this family member pestering me about the earth being flat. So I went out, I thought, how hard can it be to prove the earth is round? Spherical, rather. How hard could it be? It can't be that hard. So I looked up top 10 reasons, and I just started sending them. And they kept, every one I would send, they'd debunk. It's like, well, we've got photos of them. Well, no, we don't. Show me they're all composites. There is no, if we had, there's sources that say there's more than 30,000 satellites in space. And if there were 30,000 satellites in space at 26,000 miles, right? The circumference of the Earth is only 25,000, right? So 25,000 miles around, roughly, little less. But if you're 26,000 miles out in geostationary orbit, the satellite, it could get a full picture of Earth day and night. You could get just every second. You'd have bazillions of photos. So that tells you there's something wrong right there. But everything you look at tells you something wrong. The fact that there's a polar star and we have star trails, right? That tells you there's something wrong right there. The fact that you can have a 1,000-year-old rock with a hole through it, and every night you can watch the same star go there, right? Perfectly. The fact that we have clocks made out of, carved in stone that we don't even know how old they are, but they're still accurate to the minute, right? All of these stars and planets, and they're so perfectly timed, so perfectly. And the fact that they rotate perfectly above us in a circle. We are the center. Mm-hmm. And then you start listening to the explanations, and then you couple that with that. We've never been in space. There is no proof. You can't go in space, right? And you start researching it, and you start seeing it. You start watching Astronauts Gone Wild, and a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, and all these other, documentaries, and you see that it's all bullshit, right? And that became the most important thing to me. That, for the longest time. And then I just realized one day that you can't make someone see, no matter how hard you try. Even if they could just give you all their time. They have to want to see. They have to want to, right? And I saw things where, and I actually believe, my belief system today is that your heart, you have to have a good enough heart to see it. Some people are incapable. I believe that. I actually believe that. It's like, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that you're incapable. Maybe you're just not a good enough person, right? Maybe you're really a bad person. I think
that one's crazy, Coach. Because, there are genuinely good people, but,
But you don't know that. You don't know who's genuinely good, right? And there are things that allude to that in the Bible. There are things that basically make that thing that's certain, that only the blessed can see the truth, right? For me, it was very easy to see. And I believe that people out there, if you don't have a good heart, if you don't truly have a good heart, I don't think you have the capacities to see. I don't think you can. I think that yeah, and it so perfectly works as both. Everything, if you really get in all these arguments and you start trying to debunk with science, right, is that it's so freaky how, I don't care what aspect of it is you're looking at it, it works as both. Flat, or it's almost like you make a choice, right? It's like you decide to live in a scientific religion, and for you the earth becomes spherical, or you decide to live in a spiritual realm and it becomes flat. But I don't care. I don't care what people think. People can think I'm crazy, and I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's no proof the earth is spherical. None. I can't find any. Everything that's out there is fake.
Well, it's weird because Christian religion teaches you that the earth is flat.
All religions, just about every religion out there that ever existed.
But if you ever tell those people that the earth is flat, they'll think you're stupid.
Yeah, and they're well, no, I like 95% of my religion. That part we ignore that part. It's like, bro, if you believe in God,
you gotta go for broke.
Psalms 19:1 says, God, I remember the firmament showeth his handiwork. I can't remember the first phrase now. It's on Werner von Braun's tombstone though. The guy who founded NASA and headed up the Apollo missions, on his tombstone has Psalms 19:1, which basically says the Earth's flat and we live under a firmament, right? And I think that's so ironic. And he had a maid, right? Eddie talked about this, and I didn't know that until Eddie talked about it. Eddie's actually pretty damn woke by my belief system. Werner von Braun had this caretaker, and she talks about what he shared this whole plan that they have, the Zionist agenda. It's like the final stage is a fake alien invasion. There's no comets because there's a firmament. Like I used to fear being hit again by an asteroid or a comet. And when you come to be a flat earther, it's kind of funny because people are like, oh my God, there's a comet on collision course with the Earth. I'm like I wouldn't even get nervous about that. Like you could tell me there were like a 500-mile across, it's going to wipe out I know it's bullshit. There are no asteroids or comets or anything like that. You could tell me that aliens, I don't believe in alien abductions whatsoever at all. I don't believe in aliens anymore. And it's crazy because I think everyone comes this route. Eddie came that route too. He was huge in the Anunnaki, and I was huge in Anunnaki, right? Like I studied them. Man, I was a Zecharia Sitchin fanatic. And beyond him, Lloyd Pye and Mike Tellinger and all these, Stephen Greer. And man, I went thoroughly to the end of that road. And it's ironic because I was never a fan of Eddie Bravo, right? But over time, I came to learn that we had the same belief systems. So him and I really kind of came similar paths, even at similar times. I'm not sure he was ahead of me. For me, it all kind of happened roughly around the same time as him. So it's interesting. I think we'd have an interesting conversation if him and I ever sat down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so where are you on all this stuff?
I'm just starting. Because I'm always on, Google searching stuff, and then there's like this thing that says like the world's gonna end here and here, like prepare yourself, and then that day comes and you're like, nothing happened. Then they're like, oh, that was a mistake. You're gonna come here, and I was like, what? And then I was looking at one of those videos, and then it came up. I was watching a video about a guy trying to send a rocket to space, and then at the same height, it kept hitting something and then falling back down. And I was just like, well, he's literally putting a GoPro on the rocket and launching it up, and it's hitting something at the same, height. And I'm just like, that's catchy. And then I started looking at the Apollo, and I see that the print of the shoe and the design is not the same. Then you see guys on the back with all the television gear, and I'm just like, well, now I'm suspicious, so now I'm looking more into that. Yeah. I'm looking at the how there's like, I don't know if it's like Jews or Illuminati. I don't know, because I'm still learning. They're all controlling the media.
Yeah. Well, it's not just the media. So it's so hard when you go down this road because you'll get labeled a racist, but that's the narrative. There's nothing I can do about it. If I want to tell the story as I'm learning it, anyway, if you know me, you know that I love all people equally. I don't care. If you know me, and I know that, right? There's not a racist bone in my body. But I believe that there is a Jewish agenda. That doesn't mean I hate all Jews, because I don't hate. I hate what's going on, and I hate some of the acts that are going on in Europe right now that are being committed by Muslims, but I don't hate Muslim people, right? I don't. I think there's extremist Muslims. I think there's extremist Jews. And I believe that there's a Zionist agenda. And everything is controlled by Jews. I don't know if you know, and maybe the correct word is Zionist. I don't mean this when I say, if I ever say Jews, I don't mean all Jews, all right? But there is definitely a subset of Jews, it's that they control Hollywood, they control media, they control social media, right? They control banking, they control everything. There's nothing that they don't control. Just about every NASA administrator has been Jewish. Hollywood, I started looking at stars. I didn't know everyone that I ever loved and admired. I was a huge fan of Friends. They were all Jewish. I loved Seinfeld. They're all Jewish. My favorite band was Van Halen. He's Jewish. David Lee Roth, Jewish. All the Robert Downey Jr., Jewish. All the, Jack Black, Jewish. Seth Rogen, Jewish. James Franco, Jewish. You start looking at all of these every good actor that they're Jewish, and it's like they're Jennifer Aniston, whoever. It doesn't matter. The list goes on forever and ever and ever. And then you even start looking at like singers. Cardi B, she's supposedly Jewish. You start looking at, and it's amazing how 6.5 million people, 0.2% of the population, not even 2%, not even 1%, not even 0.5%, 0.2% of the world, of the global population is Jewish. The average net worth of a Jew, this is all Jews. This is a Jewish fact. I'm not being racist, but the average net worth of a Jew is $250,000. That's kind of jacked up. How did 0.2% of the population do this? Every other person is, take any other race or take any other, it's kind of weird because when you talk about a Jew, they're a race and a religion. It's one and the same. That doesn't exist for anywhere else. It's like, anyway, how did they get to this level of wealth, right? That's messed up. It's like if you're, and then I start looking at alternate history, right? You start looking at every war that's ever happened. I'm German. I'd watched everything on Germany I could ever see ever. It just happened to be the way I grew up. I studied the German language. I loved everything about Germany. But I'd never looked at, I always hated Hitler. I always said, man, he really ruined it for the German people. If I could go back in time, I'd wipe him out, right? And then I start looking at all this alternate history. You start looking at Europa, the last battle, or you watch Adolf Hitler, the greatest story never told, or the untold story, one of them. You watch Hellstorm, which is another really good one. There's a lot of, and there's this alternate history that Germany just wanted the Jews out because the Jews had taken all of the wealth of Germany, and all the Germans were destitute, and all the Jews were rich. And so Hitler all he wanted, and then the whole world went after Germany just because Hitler wanted to get the Jews out of Germany. Now, the Jews were kicked out of 109 countries. That's fucked up. That's a fact. Jews were kicked out of 109 countries. No other people have been kicked out of it. And the reason is, and then I started studying Judaism. I started studying, what's a kosher meal, or what's Hitler banned, a Jewish meal, the way the meat's prepared is it has to have its throat slit, right? That's what makes it kosher, right? They slit the throat of the animal. And I think that's kind of barbaric, right? Like, that's the worst way I can imagine going out. And I know that animals they're sentient beings. They may not be, like dolphins and whales may be even smarter than us, right? Like, we don't know because we can't communicate with them. But animals it doesn't matter. If someone's dumber, that doesn't give you the right to put them through the worst pain of their lives, or, the worst, most imaginable and thinkable pain, right? Like, just the fact of the way they prepare their food. Or also, I found out the term for a white person, the Jewish term for a non-Jew is a goyim, right? Like, we're goyim or goy. So I found out that they have teachings. They have these Talmudic teachings. Talmud is they're like volumes of written text by rabbis, right? And it's rabbinic teachings. It's called the Talmud. and all the rabbis study this. And it's kind of secret teachings. And in the Talmud, it says that you can kill a goyim, and it's not a sin. So a Jew can kill you or me, and you can steal from a goyim. Obviously, it's not a sin. And I think that's kind of fucked up. That here you have a religion that's taught that it's okay to kill anyone that's not your, that's not your religion, and it's also okay to steal from them. So I think that's part of the problem. Here you have this race of people, or this, this extremist faction of people. I don't know. I'd love to interview. And I have friends. I have at least one friend that's Jewish. I'd like to consider her a friend. I hate it. I hate that I have these conversations, and one day she's going to hear them. Susanna, I know. And she's going to assume, fuck Bobby. And I actually like hanging out with Susanna. I like Susanna. I think she's a good person. I don't think that just because you're Jewish, you're bad. I don't. But I think that I'd like to know more about it, right? Like, I'd like to know more about what's mainstream and what's not. And I think, obviously, yeah, it's a sensitive subject, right? Like you.
Well, does every sect of Judaism believe that, though? Like that? Because
no, well, I'd say no, because that's not in the Torah. That's in the Talmud, right? Mm-hmm. The Talmud is rabbinic teachings. If you're a rabbi, you know what I'm talking about. But rabbis are who teach, right? So you have their Bible, and then you have their secret teachings, right? That you're not supposed to talk about. You're not supposed to talk about what's in the Torah. I don't know how many people. I think anyone can buy the Torah, right? Or the Talmud. I don't know how commonly these teachings are taught, but there's obviously something. There's obviously something where it happened in Germany. It happened here. It's happened all over the world, where this one group of people is perfectly okay with stealing the wealth from anyone else that's not their group. We don't do that, right? Like, Latinos will treat any other race like them. It's like, here's your price, here's your price. So, Asians, here's your price, here's your whatever. But, I don't know. I'm not saying this is all Jews, but it certainly looks that way. If you look back over history, that we're going to help each other. But we're going to strip. If it's anyone else, we can take all their money. We'll set up high interest loans with them and strip them of their wealth, whatever. I just think that's kind of a messed up thing that I want to understand better. And again, I'm just learning, but. There's more in there. There's more to it than that.
That's crazy.
Anyway.
I think that's why they're going through so much right now. Like, that's why the way I see it right now is that maybe because they're always stealing and being, greedy, maybe that's where they have the, the title that they have today. Like, oh, Jews are bad. Oh, look at him. Like, stuff like that. Maybe that's I heard a guy, like, I was playing this game, and they was like online talking, and it was like, that's why Hitler starved your race to death. And I was like, whoa, like,
it's intense.
It's a serious game y'all are into, man. I don't.
So you think it's just karma catching up?
That's what I think.
I'm pretty sure it's in the Bible where it says the Jews are the chosen people. I remember reading this or seeing this, but it's like, is that true or is it not true? It's like you kind of be like, damn, it must be good to be Jewish. Like, they're either all actors or wealthy. They're all their families are, that the average Jew is worth $250,000. The average Jew. That's what you. I could send you the study, and that's amazing to me. Or the average net worth. Now, I know that doesn't mean every Jew is worth $250,000.
Right,
I'm just saying,
Jews.
yeah, there are, but that says a lot about your race, and it's interesting because it's a race and a religion. Whereas, to say someone's Jewish, are you referring to their religion or are you referring to their race? It's like, but when I started, I try to learn as much as I can about Judaism because I'm kind of fascinated with it now, right? And it's really interesting that the written, I think it's, if I believe it's written, don't quote me, but I think it's called Hebrew when it's written, or that may be the spoken language, but their written language, every letter in their alphabet is taken off of a, what's the word for it? Like a tetrahedron, or the Star of David, or it's really interesting. You gotta see that every letter comes off of this Star of David. It's I think that they have hidden knowledge, like that they've kept hidden. I think I'm getting out there a little bit now, but yeah.
Who knows? I want to know.
I want to know. I want to keep on studying. I want to be, my brain's full. There's no more room for anything else. It's like to take in anything else, I have to push something out. But I'm fascinated with it. And maybe they're the chosen people. I'm not saying, quite honestly, maybe everything that they have is because they are the chosen people. Like maybe that's absolutely true. And I'm not arguing with that. I'm not saying, I'd let, all we can do is go through life and wonder, right? Another belief that's in the Talmud, another teaching in the Talmud is that Goyim don't have souls, right? That's a Talmudic teaching. That's a Jewish rabbinic Talmudic teaching, is that Goyim don't have souls, just like animals. Animals don't have souls, and Goyim don't. Only Jews have souls. That was mind-blowing to me, right? To think that we can't go to heaven, we can't ascend to, we just die. Our life is a physical one. We die, they're forever. I think that's, and another thing that's taught in the Talmud is that you can only be Jewish from your mother. You can't. So if a Jewish man marries a non-Jewish woman, the children are not Jewish. But a Jewish woman marries a non-Jew, the children are Jewish. So you only get your Jewish,
They're matrilineal. So everything comes from, well, that's interesting. But the whole soul thing kind of boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Like, even when people think animals don't have souls, I'm like, you're kind of dumb. Like, they're alive. They have hearts and brains.
A buddy of mine turned me on to, and I entertain all beliefs, right? Like I think that's the way to the truth, right? Is that you have to. There's a saying by Descartes that says, to be a true seeker of knowledge, you must at least once in your life to have doubted all things, everything. So if you've never doubted the shape of the earth, you're not an intelligent person. You can come to any belief you want, but an intelligent person will have doubted what you were taught. You should. So, and I used the earth as an example because that's down a road I've gone. Mm-hmm. But my point is, I love that quote by Descartes that says, again, if you will be a true seeker of knowledge, you will at least once in your life have doubted all things. Mm-hmm. So I was going somewhere else, not just the flat earth route. I was going to go somewhere else, and my brain just lost track. So, but anyway, good quote. Where else are we going with this?
Did you see that thing about the moon being part of our atmosphere now?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I did. I've seen it all over the place, actually, which is interesting. I don't know where they're going with that. I don't know why they would, I have no idea where they're going with that. But the moon, if I don't think I don't believe it's a physical thing, right? For me, it started with there was a guy named Crow777 on YouTube, and he filmed something called Lunar Waves, and basically it was like he caught the moon they kind of call it rebooting, right? And it's not like maybe it is like a computer program, but every 6 months or so, like twice a year, he was the first one to post it, but then other people started, they contacted him like, hey, I recorded this also from another side of the world. Like, it turns out people all over the world have been recording this. They thought it was their equipment. And when they find out they're all recording at the same time, and then they do a deeper analysis, like when they really analyze the film, the ripples aren't going through the stars in the background. So then they realize, wait a minute, there's this ripple that's going to the moon twice a year, like 2 ripples. And they're calling these lunar waves, right? And how could you explain a ripple going to the moon that's clearly going through the moon and nothing else? It's not, and people all around the world are recording this, right? So it would mean that the moon is a hologram. Now, there's other things about the moon that's really interesting. I know this sounds really crazy, but anything's possible, right? Like anything. That's the one thing I've learned is when I started going down this road 3 years ago is that I have to entertain everything. And absolutely anything is possible at this point. So if I really look at the evidence, in my opinion, well, another thing that they came out with is that moonlight is cold, which is that if it's a reflection of sunlight, it shouldn't be cold. If you take the shade and you put a thermometer in the shade and then you put a thermometer in the moonlight, it's colder. It's like 4 degrees colder. So the moon puts off cold light. That makes no sense whatsoever. So people believe that the moon, and then, another thing they believe in, which is really interesting, there's a lot of things that I don't understand that don't make sense, but part of me wonders, like I'm at a point now in my belief where I don't think we can make sense of it all. I don't think there's an answer for everything. I think it's beyond us, right? Like, but I do believe it's a flat plane and there's a firmament over it. And I believe that the stars and planets are all just luminaries. They're just lights. If you zoom in on them from Earth, all you see is they look like little lights underwater. That's what they look like. Everything that we see that it looks different than that just comes from, it's all CGI in my opinion.
I can never see the stars through a telescope though.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's just like my vision or whatever, but I've never ever seen a planet or a star or anything. It's all.
Well, look, it's where we are. It's the biggest problem. Like you'd have to be. There's so much light pollution.
But that's like people's first argument. It's like look through a telescope. It's like.
Yeah, but you can look at other people that have looked through telescopes.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who have posted. Right now, what everyone's using, the big thing to use is a P900, a Nikon P900, and all these people are posting. Because this camera has I want to say an 83 times zoom. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous zoom. Like they're getting, it's like $1,000, but they're getting footage of the moon. There's way more powerful camera or way more expensive cameras out there, but the P900 is like, it's the sweet spot for power and price. And sorry about that. And people are getting like shots of the moon. That's phenomenal. And they're getting shots of planets, and the planets just look like lights underwater. It's like, you can't even fathom how you get to the CGI image that NASA gives us from what you see taken from a P900. But anyway, so like here recently, I kind of decided I wasn't gonna, at least in my online, Facebook and whatnot, I was gonna quit going down those roads. I was gonna quit putting stuff out there just because I got tired of arguing with people. Like I realized that it turns into an argument with me, so I can't change that. It's like that's how I was raised to make a point. Is I was taught, as fucked up as it is, to learn something. You use irony and facetiousness, right? Like that always stuck with me. Like that little burn was like, oh, that's how I remembered something, right? Like that's how my parent, I guess it was my parents that taught me that. But so you know, I don't know. That's the only way I know how to drive a point. And when I look at it, I'm like, man, I wish I didn't do that. But if I get into a heated conversation with someone or a heated debate, and we really sit there, and there comes that mode. It comes out of me, right? And I'm trying to improve that about me. And I think the easiest way to improve it is not to go there, right? So I'm just
you gotta go to douche rehab for a bit.
Yeah. But it's only when I think I only go there when people kind of subtly challenge my intelligence, and it's like an insult to my intelligence, right? But I probably subtly gave them a little burn too that let me deserve it. So
you do, because like sometimes when I read those comment threads, and it's like 200 comments back and forth of the same, like you're giving them stuff, and they're giving you stuff, and I'm like, it's never gonna end.
Yeah, you know? And I got tired of that. Like that was a waste of my time, because all I really want to do is study. Like all I want to do is get on my computer and watch more vids. And I know people are like, you know, well, where are you getting all your knowledge? YouTube? I'm like, yeah, that's free thinkers, right? You got all your knowledge from the government, and we know that's the most detrimental place to get knowledge. I don't care. They're always gonna give you their narrative, and that's the wrong narrative. YouTube, you have independent filmmakers interviewing people that were there in Russia, you know, or were there in Germany, were there in Austria, were there in France, and they're sitting there telling you their story. Like,
but now they're blocking that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did it become acceptable to use YouTube as a burn, though? Like, why do they think? I mean, because I go to YouTube to figure out how to fix shit.
Yeah.
Right? From people who fix things for a living. So, why is it discredited for people who have alternate beliefs? Like, it's a weak argument. It's very weak.
It is. And I'm sure there's terrible stuff out there, and there's great stuff out there. And if you just set your mind to learn, and you learn to disseminate, right? You pick what works for you. And part of me today is starting to believe that we live in alternate realities. Like when I show my friends some of these things and they can't see them, I'm like, we must be in alternate realities. We must be in alternate perceptions. Like you cannot see the world the way I see it. And now I'm starting to be okay with that.
That's kind of true, though.
Yeah. Because if God says only the blessed can see the truth, you know, and they can't see, then I just kind of consider myself as blessed, and I shouldn't be trying to share it with someone that's not blessed. You know, it's like, I mean, that doesn't sound right, but I want to talk about it with anyone that'll talk about it. I love talking about it. And for me, it's...
just wait, your people will come.
But I think people are going to see, right? I think the end is, the end of the deception. It can't keep going. Maybe it can. I don't know. But I don't care as much as I used to. I don't care to sit there and debate it with people or share it with people. I feel like I did my part and I shared it. And if anyone wants to talk about it, I don't hide it. If you bring it up, I'm going to talk about it. Yeah. It all happened for me. My mother one day told me, she goes, you know the earth's flat, right? And I'm like, Mom, don't, please. And this kept going on for like a year and a half, 2 years. And finally I just said, well, I'm going to prove her wrong because I don't want her saying this stuff around my friends, right? And I couldn't do it. You can't, if you want to become a flat earther, all you got to do is try to prove a flat earther wrong. That's all you got to do. And you realize that you have no proof that the earth is spherical. And then you start looking at religion, right? Because you're like, wow, all this stuff lines up with what I was being told. Like now, like science, when I believe, you know, from the science that I've seen and the science that I chose to believe in, that there's a firmament. And, you know, then you start to relook at religion. And I went from being, you know, I was raised Baptist, but I was atheist, even though I'd listened to all that stuff. I was like, this is like a bad comic book. And then like later on, I'm like, holy shit, it was all true. It was like, that's how I looked at it. I'm like, oh, now I got to go back, and now I'm actually reading the Bible, you know, now, although it's, you know, I'm not on track like I want to be, but I started reading the Bible, and I have listened to the Book of Enoch several times. I want to say I'm on either my fourth or my fifth.
I need a modern day version. Like,
The Book of Enoch's fascinating,
Like-
especially if you've even started to become a flat earther. Like if you even started to go down that road and you listen to the Book of Enoch, it will blow your damn mind. Like
It's hard to get through, though. I've gotten like halfway through it, and it's like it's a large part of it is redundant, right? Because they're saying the same things over and over again. I don't know why. To me, it feels like that because it's like maybe if it was like a verse in real life, like if I read it, then the whole verse would be repeating the same things. Like in the beginning, they were talking about like the angels that came to earth, and then they named all the angels, and then they said again
Yeah.
about how the angels fell to earth, and I was like, dude, you just told me this like a paragraph ago. And that's where like it's difficult, and I'm like, somebody needs to tell it to me in like a fun way.
there's too much. I'd have to listen to it 500 times. I'd have
Like-
to devote my life to listening to it to get it all. Because a lot of
Yeah.
it's, but damn, that's crazy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
as I start like if you start looking at the Bible, and it ends up being like the best, like better than Marvel, like better than DC Comics, better than, like if you start believing it, you're like, oh my God, there were giants that were like 3,500 feet tall. Like seriously, like they're, you know, that's what the Bible says. Like there could have been giants that tall. And then you start listening to like, you know, these 200 fallen angels, they're still walking the earth. And I'm like, well, how is that? And then I'm like, are they like,
They're the Jews. Just kidding.
so I wasn't going to say
I
it, but
didn't
like,
want to say it, but I feel like
but-
you were going there.
and,
so.
and are they like, every time they die and they're, what's the word for it? You know, they come back to life,
Reincarnated.
reincarnated. Thank you. And they're reincarnated. Do they keep their memories? So like they have like all the knowledge going back to being angels. You know, like I would bet that would be the case if that is the case.
like
If
maybe
they're still here,
like when they turn 13, it's an awakening, right? Maybe
kind of
that's
like vampires and
Right.
shit, right?
And it's like, what is it? There was one thing I like watching the show Supernatural because there's a lot of like biblical stuff in there. I don't know why we're so fascinated with things like that, you know, angels and demons and whatever. But there's one where it's like oh shoot, sorry. I'll call him back in a minute. But what was I saying? Oh, it was the story of Cain. And he in one season he was going through his lineage, right? Every child that he hit that had his blood in it, he would kill because they had the murdering gene in it or something like that. So is it like when they, because that's why they got in trouble too, is because they laid with humans and gave birth to
Yep.
Nephilim. So I'm like, well, what if like they are among us and they have children and they have like some special power that makes them more successful in
Yeah.
life, and that's the Jews?
Yeah,
Like,
like hey,
I know it sounds crazy.
I know it
but-
sounds crazy, but see, like, it sounds like you're going down the same road as me, and you start wondering this, and you're like, I'm not making accusations, but I'm like, dude, I'm fascinated. Like, I tell you what, I do believe they're more intelligent. I believe that they are much smarter than us. Like, listen to fucking Jerry Seinfeld, or listen to, man, they're all phenomenal with math and with money, with business, all the best. You want to have a successful business and invest in a Jew, man, that they never fail. They're fucking.
I grew up with a Jewish friend for several grades, and I specifically remember him being an asshole, like unrepentant to everybody. He thought he was better than everybody, and he was great at math, but he was like terrible at being a human being. And I was like, is this how all Jews are? And like, it kind of is kind of like that, because like when I met his family, they were like super rich, but they were did it stop?
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't hear anything either.
No, I hear
Okay.
everything you're saying.
But it's like they had that better than you
See,
vibe.
I never had a Jewish friend until I met, like, the only one I know is Susanna, right?
Yeah.
She seems perfectly normal to me. Like, I'm not, God dang, I hope I I don't want to piss anyone off, and certainly not Susanna. She's a sweet girl. I have nothing against her.
Yeah, she's super cool.
But, you know, Hoyce's manager is Jewish, Mike Kogan. And I just thought, you know, I thought that's interesting, right? Like, he has a Jewish manager, and this guy has a great life. And he manages fighters he has a ton of Bellator fighters under him. He has Big Country. He has Hoyce. He has what's his name? King Mo Lawal. He has tons of really good fighters under him, right? He has a great living. And they have extremely good business acumen. And they have, but I think the business acumen, I mean, I'm being candid. I'm saying whatever the hell I want to say, right? This is my show. It's my life. And I'll suffer the repercussions, whatever. Is I think that business acumen is really the mentality where you just don't care if you're fucking someone, right? Like,
Yeah.
like,
You gotta be a shark.
and when I did business, I think one of the reasons I never could get past the point I got was that I always looked for a win-win, always. Like, if I were doing business with you, I'd try to find, you know, what really worked for you and what really worked for me. Mm-hmm. And I think the mentality of a cutthroat businessman, which is a quality that certain people have, is that you look at for what works for you. And if you know, if you have $1 million and I can take all your $1 million, I couldn't do that. I can't do that, right? Like, I'd be like, okay, well, you need something, but I'd be happy if I could get 60,000 or whatever. You know, it's like, but there are people out there that'd be like, how can I get this guy's full $1 million? You know, like, you'll structure it where, like, that's a possibility. It's like, well, I'm sorry, it didn't work, but I get your $1 million. You know, it's like, I'm always looking for a win-win. And I think that is the quality of most, you know,
Most people.
and that's why that's why they're extremely successful, is that they are cutthroat business people, you know. But you look at, this is what's really interesting. A buddy, this is where I was going earlier. Mm-hmm. A buddy of mine, and that I lost track. It came back to me. A buddy of mine turned me on to the raw. It's called the raw.
The rule of one.
The rule of one, but it's called the raw something, like the raw code or the raw, but raw, the rule of one, right? And he has been studying this for years, and he has gone down it again and again and again. And this is his thing. And the rule of one basically says that you have to, there's these levels of reincarnation. And the first level is like microorganisms, right? And like the second level is like plant life. And then the third level is like animals. And then the next level is like humans. And then after humans, it's like light beings. And one of the things he said was like, it takes like 26,000 years before before you can go to the next level, right? They have these, I forget what he called it. Here was the term for it.
Densities.
There's densities, but there's a time when you can transcend levels. That time is like, there's a name for that time, but it happens like once every 26,000 years, and it's when everyone in this density moves up, but not everyone does. Like, if you don't make that transition, that period of time, there's like a window that's like 100 and something years or something, then you're in it back for another 26,000 years.
Oh, that
and
sucks.
Yeah, I know, that sucks, right? It's so if you didn't learn, now this is what was really interesting, is every level you can move up to. Let me see if I can remember this right. You could move up based on being evil or good, okay? But the final level, so you can go all the way up to, let's say there's 7 levels. I think there's 7 levels. I think there's 7 densities.
Yeah.
The final density is only for good, but you can get to the 6th level based on being evil, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was so basically.
It's like 50% evil, 10%
right,
good or something.
Right, right, and you know, you kind of come to this thing where our world our existence needs evil too, right? How can you have good without evil? How can you have free will without temptation? How can you have, there's the necessity for both, right? So if someone chooses to go that route, or if someone was chosen to have that role, you got to have both. You can't have, utopia cannot exist. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't, you can't have, you have to have suffered to be good. You have to, to appreciate what it means to have been stripped, or to have been tortured, or to have been,
How does he define good and evil though? Because like me, it says you can choose your life too every time you're reincarnated.
Yeah.
Like if I had the choice to be like maybe 90% good, right? But 10% of me was evil, like now. If somebody was like, hey, let's go on a pedophile killing spree, right? That's your job. We're going to kill pedophiles and rapists all day long because the justice system is broken. So I'm a vigilante. And, but the people I'm killing are just, they're monsters. Does that make me a monster?
Right.
Is that, like, does that 10% of being evil negate my 90% of being good?
Right.
Or am I being good because I'm serving a greater good?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, that's all. Okay, so that was in, what was the name of that movie? Oh, it's a great movie. The Watchers, The Watchmen. The Watchmen or The Watchers, The Watchmen, that comic book. But there
it's Watchmen.
there's a thing about that and I was like really perplexed, right? Because the bad guy in that movie, he killed like 1 million people.
Was it Rorschach?
No, it wasn't Rorschach.
No.
He wasn't the bad guy. He was a good guy. He was one of the Watchmen.
Okay.
But he did it to save what he thought in his mind he was saving like millions and millions. He was preventing World War, which would save like hundreds of millions of people, right? Hundreds of millions of lives. Like he averted World War by making the blue dude, whatever his name was, the enemy. And the question is, can you do evil for the greater good? And does that make you evil or good, right? If I can kill you and save 10 people, you know what I'm saying, that we're going to die, what's the correct thing to do? What's the good thing to do? Should I, so Rorschach was, you cannot do none. He's like, no, like Rorschach, and he got killed in the end because he was going to go tell. And if he had told, it would undo everything the guy did, and the 1 million people would have died in vain. So they killed Rorschach in the end. So it was like, the greater good. Can you do evil if it's for the greater good, right? That's something that's, my answer to that was, I hope I'm never in that position, right? Like I don't want to ever, that's why I couldn't.
I think I would kill the 1 million people if I could pick the 1 million people. And that's way more of that's way more effort than just like saying, hey, send a missile to whatever nation it is, or like, I mean, Jacksonville is close to 1 million people. It's 880,000 or something like that. Just be like, hey, blow up this city. But for me,
but so one of the things I thought about is, like for example, I'm not 100% certain that the people who are perpetrating the flat Earth are bad. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% certain of that. So, for example, what if this lie is for the greater good? Mm-hmm. That could be. I'll admit that there can be a circumstance that I don't know. Like, you're tempting them with evil. You're hiding God. And then, so now it's easier for the person to choose sin, right? And it's harder for someone to find God in this situation that they've. So maybe their role is a greater good role, right? Like, when you look at these, first I want to say, these astronauts are douchebags. They're liars, they're fakers, they're just actors, right? But what if they've been explained? Like, what if they've been brought into this secret society and explained what their role is, and that they're actually, what they're doing is for a greater good cause, which could very well be the case, right? In the reality that I choose to live in. So anyway, like I don't pretend to have all the answers. I'm fucking completely lost, but I do love learning.
It's a huge puzzle, like the Gordian knot. You keep on coming across things and then more things. Like sometimes I'm mentally exhausted from thinking of how everything goes together. And then I'm like, my whole life could possibly be a lie except for my immediate life. You know, like everything that affects my immediate life.
And, it was really cool. One of the things you touched on about with Raw, the rule of one, was that you get to choose your next life. Mm-hmm. And like, could you imagine that when you die, you could choose to live the life of, Bill Gates, like some really rich, you could choose that. But the thought process behind it is that you choose the life that'll give you the lessons that you need to reach the next level, right? So you're trying to make it through these densities, mm-hmm. right? And maybe you chose a really hard, enduring life so that you could grow in this life, right? And I believe that. Like I believe I could have been financially successful, but that's not success, right? Like that's not. I kind of feel like I turned my back on that, and I said, well, I want a simpler life, right? Hard work. I want a decent day's pay for a hard day's work, and I don't want to. I used to want the sports car, the name brand clothes, the bling and watch. I used to want all that. But 99% of people don't have that. And what are you saying to those people? What are you saying? Like just something to think about is that you're not making people feel good. You're making them feel bad, Like
less than.
Yeah, you're making them feel less than. And like you want people to, life becomes infinitely easier when you just say, I want to, because it's not hard to have a simple life. You have a much better life. You have time for your family. You have time for your friends. And then money is not a problem when you don't need a Corvette and when you don't need a big house. And the real irony is all of a sudden those things, you get them, you actually could, if you wanted to, accumulate them down the road, because now you're not wasting your money. You're not in this lifestyle, this rut of buying what you can't afford, right? Instead, you live this simple lifestyle and you start putting money away, and it starts working it starts generating money on its own, right? It starts accumulating interest, and then that, before you know it, you're financially successful, and you didn't have to screw anyone.
I totally believe in reincarnation, though. But I think it's like my grandma used to tell me. She believed that she was a psychic medium, and that's some spooky shit that we'll get into some other time. But she said when you get reincarnated, whatever you didn't learn in your past life, for whatever reason, you get to work on it this time. And your life is a reflection of what you did in your past life. So it's like, if you were like a shitty person in your past life, then you get to suffer in your next life or something like that. But man, when I think about that, I'm like, what did I do in my past life that put me here? Because like some stuff is like really hard, but other stuff is like so good. Like my kids are amazing, but my childhood was like kind of like a confusing, not terribly terrible time, but it's like, what did I do to deserve those things, And even some of the things that were like perpetrated against me as a child, I want to know what kind of God would ever do that to anybody. What kind of like loving God would do that? I think that's why I have like people say, oh, are you practicing religion? I was like, no, I don't practice religion. I do believe in a higher power, but I can't say that it's Christian or Buddhist or a Jewish God or anything like that. I don't know. And I think like religion in itself is kind of like a conspiracy too. Like it is. It's a way to control the masses.
Well, I think my belief is that it got bastardized for sure.
By humans, by men.
Yeah, by men, right? And I do believe in the God of the Bible. I do. I believe in the God of the Bible today, and I think that man was created in His image, and I believe in the demons. That I believe in the fallen angels. Call them what you will. But I believe that it's kind of interesting because if you do believe in God, He would have known this was going to happen. Like those fallen angels were all part of the plan.
Right.
And I'm sure He has the same love for them, if not more. Like that's their role, that's their job. This was all part of I don't think that there's anything that didn't go to plan for God. He let people make choices. He knew the choices they were going to make, and He was fine with them, or He wouldn't have put them in a position where they could have made them. It's like this was all part of the greater plan. I do think we need to suffer in life. I do, and I think it's unfortunate. Like I think that we have to suffer the most heinous things too, and I think that that's all. I believe in reincarnation, just like you. I saw this one kid that was like 5 years old, 6, 7, 8 years old, but he got his parents to get on a plane and go to the city, and he said, I used to live in that house, and he went inside, and it has blue wallpaper, and it has this, and across the streets, this and that. I was convinced. I'm like, holy shit, it's either, now it could have been a big scam, but my buddy, I'm not gonna say his name, but smart guy, very, very smart guy, definitely up there in intelligence. One of the things that he's into the raw, the rule of one, but he came across, there's this guy that has these books, he's published them, and it's about where he just, he's a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever, that puts him to sleep, puts him into a deep trance, whichever one that is.
Hypnotherapist.
Yeah, well, hypnotherapist. Yeah, I think psychiatrist or psychologist, whichever one that is. I think that would be I'm not sure, but I think they could do that too. I think that maybe I'm wrong, but he like puts people into these deep sleeps and pulls out their past lives. And this guy has all these accounts, like there's a series of books basically about all these different people that were reincarnated, and he's a advocate and believer of it, obviously. But I believe in that. I believe we're reincarnated, and I believe we're reincarnated just like it says to perfect ourselves, and we arguably. I'm curious, so because your mom would be of the belief that we don't choose, that we would come back to get the lessons we need.
Yeah, my grandma.
Your grandma, sorry. But we would the alternate way of thinking is that we choose the life that we're going to live. Like Paris Hilton before she was born said, I want a vacation. I just want to fucking cruise through life and have the best fucking life you can have. Like the Kardashians said, I want a break, put me on vacation. But what did you learn in this life? You know, I'd like to think that I chose a tough life because I wanted to learn a lot, right? So I think that
the way I see it is, it's not like, oh, you die and you get to choose your life. It's like you choose your life when you're living it. Like every day you make decisions and don't think about them, but they actually mean something.
Yep.
That's like the rule of one is basically saying that life is a test. And it really makes sense if you see it that way.
Yeah, that's not against what I believe. I think that no two people are going to agree exactly how, because we don't know. But we all have some belief about, like my brother just thinks it's over. Like he's like, nah, we're just over. I'm like, God, that's a terrible way to go through life. Like to just, I guess scientifically there's no proof,
I don't know. That kind of seems, the finality of it sometimes seems appealing to me because I'm tired mentally, physically, emotionally tired, like every day. And if I think that like the hard days, if I think that there's more hard days for me, like I have to do it again and like keep learning those lessons, it's just like, oh, what a drag. Like I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, no,
and
life
again.
life is fucking hard. It is.
Yeah.
I thoroughly hate my job. I thoroughly hate my job.
Yeah.
And like just getting up in the morning is hard because I know I got to do what I hate for eight hours. But like if you look at the going back to the rule of one,
Mm-hmm.
he believes that there's what's called soul pods,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we reincarnate with the same group of souls again and again and again, right? Like that's your soul family, right? Like it may not be, you might be your mother's father next, or you know what I'm saying, next time, or your aunt may be your cousin, or you may not be as close each time, but you're all within each other's vicinities. And I thought that was really an interesting concept, right? Like I love pondering stuff like that.
Do they overlap? Like, there's
Well, they would have to.
Yeah,
I would think.
the whole there's a friend for a season, a reason, and then a lifetime or something like that. Like some people will come into your life for like maybe a week and you click with them and then they just go away and you don't feel anything about it. And then you meet somebody and you're like, that they're going to be in your life forever, So like that's the confusing thing about soul pods. Like how does that even work? Like, I mean, I've met, by the time we're out of high school, we've met at
Well, I
least,
don't think that's your soul pod, though.
Yeah.
I think there's
you think
there's
it's the
people that
you
are
spend the
very
most
close
time
to
with?
you. And, well, I think there's people that are close to you that you don't spend that much time with because they've moved somewhere else or something like
Right.
that. That can happen. But, yeah, I think that there's that like, if it's true, I wouldn't doubt it that there's soul
a nice
pods that
thought,
we
though.
go through these reincarnations with.
It is, because if I think about it, like, man, I would love to have my kids in my next life. Like, they're just dope people. Like, I mean, they're kind of difficult, but, like, their core,
Yeah.
like, how they see the world and the way that they think about things is like, man, I need more people like you in my life, but as grown-ups, with a little bit more emotional control and coping mechanisms, right? Then that would be a great person to have in my life. And I think I get that from jiu-jitsu, though. Like, I think this is the first, I've never done a sport before, by the way, like ever, because of my eyesight. But coming here, it felt like it was right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I was shy at first, obviously, because I don't like being touched in general. But here, it's different. It's like once I got over that, then I could like open myself up and then kind of let these people get to know me. And that's always been a barrier, like letting people get to know me. It's hard to make friends as an adult. Nobody ever tells you that when you're a kid, though.
Yeah. Although I appreciate not having too many friends. I
Yeah.
like a small group. That's another thing that I like. I like a small group of friends. I don't want a big group of friends. I used to think I wanted that, but now I'm like happier with a small. It's work, man. It's work having a big group of friends.
Well, that's the thing, too. Like, if you have a bunch of friends that don't want a big group of friends, it's less work. Like, we're all okay with hanging out, and then we're all okay with not hanging out either.
Like the school is more. This is the perfect size family for me, right? Like, and we see each other just enough. And like, for me, I get my playtime every night, right? Because I get to come down and I get to hang out and cut up, and then I get to spar, and then it's like every night I get to interact with my friends, and I treat it as such. But see, I think people that run it as a business don't have that luxury. They don't get to be friends, right?
Yeah.
They have to be. So that's just something to think about. But yeah.
So how are you going to help me and Jeremy?
I was, I haven't.
And why did you even think of that? That's the thing. Like, how did you come to that conclusion anyways?
I have helped people. I have helped certain people more than others. You know, one thing's for sure about getting better in jiu-jitsu. The better person you roll with, the more you learn from them, right? Like if you got a guy over here that's trained for a year and that's who you get to roll with every day, and you got a guy over here that's trained for 20 years and that's what you get to roll with every day, you're going to grow a lot faster training with the guy that's trained for 20 years because you get to learn how to block him. First you get learn, shit, hey, he did that to me, he did that. And then again and again in your head, you're like, oh, okay, he grabbed my lapel here, like might take 10 times, and then he blocked my leg here and he pushed my knee and then I fell over, you know. You absorb that. And, you know, we're all going to grow. We're all going to get there. But when I see, like, you guys are competing a lot, right? Like for you, you're looking at it like this may be your answer to you know, your future, you know? And I'm like, all right, I got to help you. That's a bigger commitment than someone else wants in their life. And then I've just seen you being more competitive than the other people. You know, I've seen you compete a few times now and you won it, right? But I haven't been giving you, I don't push competition, right? I just, but if someone wants to compete, then I have to help that. I have to focus on that person, right? Because competition's the highest level, right? The self-defense is easy. Anyone that spends any amount of time in this school, any significant amount of time, they're going to do fine in self-defense, right? And self-defense isn't fighting another jiu-jitero, right? Self-defense is fighting someone who, you know, is arguably untrained or at least hopefully not trained in jiu-jitsu. And that's where we use our knowledge and leverage. But for someone who wants to compete or someone who wants to arguably, then I arguably make a living in this, I need to invest in them more because they have a different path that they've chosen for them. I spent a lot of time with Jason because I know it's Jason, he wants it to be his livelihood. So Jason and I trained together a lot. I knew that he wanted to do this for a living, right? And but, you know, it's easier for me to choose someone like Jalen or someone like Nikki because they're young. And what I learned is that young people rarely betray you. I invested many times in adults, and 9 out of 10 of the adults that I invested in betrayed me. Like I taught them everything that I knew, and I really went out of my way to like just mind meld my jiu-jitsu to them, right? Like just every day, just like, dude, let me show you this, that, this, like, and that happens. I get that excitement, but every time I've got that excitement, that person, you know, to give you an example, and I still love the guy, I do. He's still my brother, but like just one example. One of the guys that started under me as a teenager, his name was Scott. And he went up to purple belt under me, and he was like 155. And Bernardo, for this 5-time world champion, shows up, right? I didn't mean to throw his name out there. I was telling the story. But this 5-time heavyweight world champion, current world champion, shows up, gives a seminar, and Scott caught him, man. Scott choked him out. Scott's 155. This guy's a heavyweight 5-time world champion, and Scott caught him, right? And Scott's jiu-jitsu is legit. It's fucking legit jiu-jitsu. And I was his only teacher. I was his, like, I felt like, and I gave him everything I knew, every ounce of knowledge. He trained, and I gave it to him and gave it to him, right? Like, and that's the way I teach is I really, and I trained with, like, Scott was one of the guys I rolled with every day. He was that guy, right? He was the Nicky at that point in time. And then he left me and went to another school. And I'm just like, it makes you not want to invest in people. Do you know what I'm saying? It makes me, it's like when someone new shows up, it's harder for them to get me to invest in them because that Scott was like the umpteenth guy that happened with, right? Like what happens is, you know, they get to a certain level and then they see someone that comes around and can beat me, right? Or maybe some guy, he hasn't come around, but he has 5 world championships under him or something like that, just as an example. And they're like, man, I want to go to that level now. I'm going to go over to him. It's like, that person may not be as good a teacher as me. I'm not saying I'm better. I'm not. I'm just saying everyone has a different way of teaching. Everyone has different strengths. The most important thing that you get is a teacher who really wants to give you his knowledge, right? That's the thing, because he's shortcutting you. If that person really invests in you, really, he can give you everything that he has, and he has shortcutted your path by that amount of time. Mm-hmm. So let's say I dump everything I have into you, mm-hmm. and I shortcut your jiu-jitsu 16 years, or 15 years. Mm-hmm. But then you're like, no, I've got everything, Bobby. It's like Nikki right now. I don't have a lot left to teach her, right? There's not a lot. We have rolled so many times. She has absorbed 99% of my jiu-jitsu. She knows I don't joke with it. When I roll with her, we're rolling. I'm setting out. Like, if I really set my mind to beat her, maybe I can take it up another level. But I'd have to use my strength. I'd have to use my point. My point of it is I mind melded my knowledge to that person, right? I chose that in Nikki because she was younger, and I see that youth. There's a bond there. With an adult, that bond isn't there. I don't know. At least so far, everyone that I invested in, kind of in the end screwed me. So I'm like, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to really mind meld with people, I don't know, like that. I went down that road with Jason when I think about it, because Jason always gave, I'd see Jason make posts, man, who are the top 3 instructors you've ever, he'd put my name up there. I don't see other people like, oh, well, Heaton, Henner, Donaher, whatever, it's like Jason's out there like Bobby Thompson, man, the fucking dude's, he gave me serious props, and he stood by, even as a purple belt, he still stands by me to that level, Mm-hmm. So I think there's some people in this life that are loyal like that. And if I believe that, if I believe that there's that level of loyalty, then I'll invest in you. I'll invest more in you. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I kind of treat everyone equal, But for me to shortcut you the way I would shortcut my daughter, right? Like, my daughter's not going to grow at the same rate as another kid. No. So if anyone says, oh, well, that's fucked up, Bobby does that, they all do it. I don't care what you say. All coaches do it. All fathers, all parents do it. For me to, if any one of them would let you think that they invest the same in their 5-year-old student that they would their 5-year-old daughter, no. They're working with their daughter more. They're working with their son more, for sure, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Just like Tom and Evan.
Right.
They're at it every night.
Yeah, and you have that same ability. A coach can do that with a student. There's no doubt about it. But I think that coach wants to believe in that student first. They kind of need to see a little bit of time. Is this guy temporary? Like, for me to just start investing in you, I want to see that person had a trial or a tribulation, and stuck around. They didn't just. So yeah, but yeah, I kind of made up my mind at the last tournament. I was like, I'm gonna start working with these guys, these 2 in particular. But yeah, it's there are certain people that coaches do invest in. That happens. I don't want to say it's favoritism. That's not it. I guess everyone just has a different journey, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone's going to learn self-defense just fine. But yeah, you do see certain people chose a certain path, and they really want to get there. And yeah, I kind of said, yeah, I want to see you do good as an MMA fighter, and I want to see you crush it. I want to see you go in and crush a fucking tournament.
I've been thinking about something that Nick put into my head, and it's he wants to start training. So his is that an alarm or a phone call? Hold on. Yeah, he really wants to start training, but we had a deal that he could start training once I got blue belt, right? And it's getting close, right? And his shoulder isn't as serious as we had originally thought.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking like maybe, sorry. Oh.
But yeah,
Yeah, you say I got a message. Something.
yeah, I get the connection you're trying to say with young people because they're young, and most people nowadays, you know, they don't have like a parent, and a coach could be like the replacement for that. That happened to me once, and the way I see it is like, yeah, there's good coaches, but then there are bad ones. You know, there's the coaches that you're like, oh, let's do a private lesson. You pay them, and there's like, just get another rookie and do triangles with him like 5 times. That's about it. That's what you paid hundreds for. But you got coaches like you. Like, let's say one day I'm late on my payment. You're like, you don't need to pay me. Just keep showing up to class. That's why I stayed in this gym, because first day I came in here, I was already joking around with Joan. You know, I was already making connections with people. Mm-hmm. You know, like the way I see it is, Joan is the aunt, you're the father, Nikki's the big sister who likes to beat on everybody, and Jason is just the serious brother. That's the way I see it in this gym. And everybody just has their own.
We have the tools. We have the tools in this gym to make anyone as good as they want to be. There's no question about it. I like our family. We've got a good vibe. Yeah, I definitely want to be there when you do your first MMA match, though, dude. You're gonna wreck it. You're gonna crush it, dude.
I'm gonna be screaming my head off right next to your mom. Okay, so my question before we go. Okay, so I want to train seriously for at least 3 months and then compete, like at my peak physical condition, right? But I don't know if I want to compete next as a blue belt because it's coming up. Like, just hold it off, or like be a blue belt and just because it's different once you're a blue belt. Or do I just say, hey, I'm just going to stay longer as a white belt? Because you've mentioned that before. Should somebody have a say in whether they get promoted or not? Because I do want to compete one more time as a white belt to see what I can do, because that's, to me, it's the best time to compete.
Yeah.
If you're just getting onto the competition scene. But also, I got to deal with him. I got to, blue is the time when he would be able to come train. But I'm also thinking, like, I'm not that big of a jerk to be like, no, you have to wait until I turn blue.
What you need to prepare is you've got to roll for 45 minutes to an hour a day, every day, at least 3 days. Like three days has to be the minimum. Like it should be 5 days a week. You need to go out. I mean, you're going to see your body change. You're going to see your you got to start speaking the language fluently. You've got to speak it fucking fluent. Man, it's like the Meow Brothers say, just shut up and train. Just shut up and train. You've got to do that for, if you want to crush it, you want to go out there and crush it, that's what you got to do. You got to take it to that level. You got to go out there. I always train like I always did an hour. Now I've slowed down. In the last year, I've finally slowed down. But I was an hour a day of sparring, 5 days a week minimum, 5 days a week, an hour a day for 15 years. For 15 years, I was like 5 days a week, an hour a day, just like out there sweating, 2 pounds of water, every day. And I think that's what you have to do. If you want to do it, because it's not fair. Like, I actually don't like coaching. I don't like coaching. I don't like going and I will always do it, but I don't like it. I would be much happier if someone else did it, because when you don't win, I feel like I let you down, right? Like that's
I don't ever feel that.
It's the
I feel
opposite.
the other way around.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
So from my standpoint, I'm like, oh God, why didn't she do that? I failed her. It was my job that she knew not to do that. So I feel bad. But another thing is, you just have to understand, if we look at, like, let's use Alliance as the, I shouldn't use any team, but there are schools out there. Let's retract Alliance. Maybe not Alliance. Maybe they're a bad example. Let's just say some schools out there. Some schools out there hold their average white belt is 2 to 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's where competitions are won. That's where that's where team trophies are won. That's where their school gets to be one of the highest ranked schools, and that's where their school gets accreditation, and people are like, oh, you want to be good in jiu-jitsu, you train Alliance. But what if I held back all my white belts for 3 to 4 years, and I didn't let you compete till your third year? We'd crush competitions. We'd go in every competition and crush it, right? Well, that's one reason why I don't like competition, is because there is no fair setting. There is no, what would be a fair, what would be fair is if belts were the amount of time you studied, the amount of hours you studied. Like a blue belt is at 150 hours. A purple belt's at 800 hours. Like, just as an examples. And that were the standard in all schools. And then you could have fair competitions, because then you could see who's teaching and there's two things being compared: the teachings of the teacher and the skill of the individual, right? But how's it fair if individual A has 8 months and individual B is over here with 3 years, right? It's not a fair comparison of the skill or the teacher at this point in time. So
Right, and then there's also, you have to consider that, like, some people will come in as hobbyists and they want to try competition where they're coming in twice a week for a year, and then I'm coming in 5 times a week for a year. That's still not the same skill level, even in that amount of time.
That's why I track hours, right? And I promote based on how I was promoted. I went back and looked how I was. I moved to blue belt at 10 months, and I said, well, no one's going to get blue belt before 10 months. I said, I don't care. And IBJJF, I think, says a year. So I said, okay, but a year is going to be. I said, if the average person trains full time, and I have the right to do this. If someone listens to this and goes, well, hey, that's my student. If you don't like it, that's great. Then your student's going to be better or whatever. I don't care. But this is how I want to do it, right? My black belts are a representation of me, and I'm proud of all. If I have 5, I'm proud of my brown belts. I'm proud of my purple belts. I think if I look at Henry as a brown belt, man, I couldn't be happier. If I look at Bobby as a black belt, I couldn't be happier. If I look at Nikki as a purple belt, I couldn't be happier. If I look at, they all had different roads. They're all different ages. They're all different athleticisms. It's my choice as an instructor to come up with any system that I want to use. I put in my time, and I was promoted by legit, it doesn't get any more legit. Hickson Gracie Luis, right? That's me. So I get to choose how I want to promote my people. And if you don't like it, good. You have your system. You go to your system. So I choose my system. But I think that if you put in a year training full time with me, that's a blue belt. That's what Alio believed a blue belt was. That's by my teachings. That's what Hoist said. You're now a blue belt, Bobby. So I follow that. I don't follow the system that allows us to dominate tournaments. I follow the system that says, congratulations, you're going to do great in a street fight, right? You're going to do, your self-defense is at this level. That's what I believe. So, but I stress out when I go to a competition, and I'm like, man, we have a focus on, I promote based on self-defense, and then you have schools that promote based on competition. And now our students they're not being compared on the same amount of time. They're being compared on one. So yeah, I kind of stress on that a little bit, because then I wonder how my student will take it. Like, my student will go, well, I lost to this person who's the same rank. Yeah, but they're not a 10-month student. They're, whatever. Anyway.
I don't ever feel that way, though. I don't ever put any type of onus on you when I compete, because I know what I did with what you gave me. And like a lot of times it is my fault, because I mean, just look at this past competition. I got injured beginning of February. I didn't roll for the entire month of February. I just came in for fundamentals. And then I was called 3 days before to compete. And I still went out there because I love competing. It's fun. It's great. I like meeting other jiu-jiteras. And that's what I'm there for, is to meet other women in the sport. Right? That's one of the reasons why I compete. But another reason why I compete is to justify coming to class every single day, because I might not ever have to defend myself against a person on the street. But if I'm doing jiu-jitsu 5 times a week, there has to be a reason other than I love jiu-jitsu. Like, it's impractical for me to just keep going and not test myself to make sure that I'm, like, the hours put in are going somewhere positive. So, and, like, that's surprising to hear you say that you feel that way, because, I mean, coaching is hard, right?
Well,
but I would rather have you in the corner being kind of nervous than not have you there at all.
Yeah, I'd rather be there for you, because I know you get a strength through your coach being there. I know. I remember what it was like. But I don't like the feeling of being a coach. Some coaches do. Another thing I don't like doing is coaching you.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be in flow, right? If you're going to win, you're supposed to be in, not even thinking. If you're listening to me, now you're slower than your own thought process. Now you're processing what I'm saying and trying to execute on that. You're not in flow. I remember first time in 2003, I went and competed in Santa Barbara, California. And Hoyce was there, and my teacher competed as well. And Hoyce was his teacher at the time. I was under him. And I remember him being upset with Hoyce and saying, "Man, why didn't you didn't coach me? You didn't say anything during my match." And Hoyce is like, "Well, do you know what to do or not? It's like, how am I going to fix you in 10 seconds? It's like you either have the skill or you don't, right?" So I would rather not say anything unless I see something blatantly wrong, right? Like if that's the only thing I'd want to say. I saw that you do have a bad habit, and it's that you sit your butt down, and that makes you're actually very easy to hip bump sweep, and you got hip bump sweep like 5 times. I never noticed that until there is an advantage. As a coach, there is an advantage for me to go to a competition, is that I can see. It's harder to see in class because you want both your students to win. So it's like, oh yeah, you're happy the other one swept, you're happy there's an exchange going on. It's harder to identify a problem when your student, because you want both to win. You see what I'm saying? So it's like when...
See, I never would have caught that if you hadn't told me, though. I would have probably kept doing the same thing if I didn't have a coach telling me that my feet is wrong. And I never catch, like, I've been in here for almost 9 months, and sometimes I do it because I'm rarely ever in guard because everybody's bigger than me. So I'm focusing on passing the legs. I'm never just sitting down in guard. I'm always actively moving. But since competing against girls is different, where I'm mostly in guard, like, it's an unfamiliar place for me to be, I would have never seen that if you weren't there. But, like, another thing is, like, I'm not really trying to get you, I don't really want you to coach me in that aspect. It's more like when they encourage you from the sidelines, when they're telling you that you're doing good, that was a great reversal, or that you're still doing great, that you have enough time to work your game. That's what I'm looking for. Like, I want to know how much time is on the clock, whether I'm defending solidly, whether my intensity needs to be ratcheted up or something like that. Like, things like that. I mean, when I competed and there was no coach, it totally sucked.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, that's why I would definitely be there for you. Like, as long as, if there's not something preventing me from being there, I would always be there for my students, even though I don't like it. Like, I know some people love, because they get to feel like they have knowledge. You know, they get to yell, "Oh, dude!" Like they have all the answers, right? And then you see the moment their student gets off the mat, "Let me show you what you should have done. Come over here." It's like, man, there's a time for that. Do that. You don't have to show everyone here that you have all the answers for everything. We're all learning.
I see that a lot.
And but, huh?
I gotta go.
Oh, you got to go. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you got anything you want to add before we?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Cool.
That was,
Glad to have you on.
It was good fun.
Yeah.
You're the youngest person on the podcast so far.
You are 15. 15 years. When do you turn 16?
September 9th.
Cool.
Oh, that's like a week and a half before my son's birthday.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Your mom was like all about telling people that you were 15. Like at that competition, every person that competed against him, she was like, "My son is 15." Like, and he did that. Like, she's definitely
he competed
a
with grown
jiu-jitsu
men.
mom.
Yeah, that was not a youth competition. You were a youth, and you entered the adult division, right? That was huge. That was a huge, and you did great. And you even fought up a weight class in the that's phenomenal. You're a talented athlete and grappler, and I'm gonna if you stick around, I'm gonna give you all my knowledge. I'm gonna mind meld it all to you.
I understand.
I'm gonna get you and we need, you know, what you need is someone as close to your size as possible. You all do. This is the biggest thing you need to grow is you need someone your size that wants to roll with you all the time. This is what you need. I can give you the knowledge, but you need a sparring partner that is your size, and you have to find that person, and you have to if they don't like sparring with you, you have to first off you have to realize you need that person. You have to figure out why they don't like sparring with you. What are you doing? What is it that, and you have to change that to make it to where you all can enjoy sparring, because that goes back to Hedon's mentality of keep it playful. That's why you need to keep it playful, so you have a partner that you can train with constantly and consistently, because what you need to do is just roll as much as possible. That's the biggest thing. You've got to get in 45 minutes to an hour of rolling a night. Like if you want, and really there's no limit. There's no cap. If you can do 2 or 3 or, however many hours you can do, but try to come at least, if you want to crush competition, you want to absolutely crush it, try to come 5 days a week. That's your job. You come in the evenings and you put in and you get your hour of rolling in or your 45 minutes of rolling in. You got to get that. And you got to, it doesn't matter who you find to roll with. There's no easy rolls. It doesn't matter if it's you two. It doesn't matter who it is, but you have to be smart enough to know if it's not enjoyable for both parties. If one of you's crushing the other all the time, then you got to say, man, they can't be enjoying this. All right, I got to have some back and forth. We got to play. I move, they move, whatever. But you need that sparring partner, and that's how you grow. And that's what the Meow brothers had. And this one, why I go back to them, is that they had each other, and they trained off of each other. So we'll shut it down. Thanks for having you, Joan and Jeremy. And cool. Everybody, till next time.
Good times.